Welcome everyone to Comics from the Multiverse episode 240. I am Peter, and joining me as always is Matt.
Hey, what's up?
And Connor is also here.
Still can't get rid of me.
Trying his bad luck since 2016.
We tried antibiotics and it was a no-go.
We tried to cut off the ginger growth that is Connor on this podcast.
You say that, but all things considered, if me dragging this show down is the bench line for 2016, I still think we're above average for that year of end results by now.
I'm just saying, Connor is basically antibiotic resistant. That's all. He's the new strain.
Oh,
What was it, like MRS something or other? MRSA.
Wait, what are your initials? That's what we'll just go with.
Not that.
CR21. That's what this is.
This is a DC Comics podcast.
Shambles.
We talk about DC Comics every week. Coming up on this week's show, we got Solicits, of course, to talk about, but in terms of the actual books, we'll be talking about Future State Dark Detective issue 3, Future State Justice League issue 2, Future State Superman Wonder Woman issue 2, Future State Kara Zor-El Superwoman issue 2, and Future State Teen Titans issue 2. Plus Rorschach issue 5 came out this week, so we'll talk about that. And Connor's got a Patreon book that he looked at this week, Undiscovered Country issue 12 to be specific. So that is what's coming up on this week's show as we get closer and closer to that 250 benchmark, that milestone.
More like a kidney stone.
Pretend you like the show, Matt. I mean, I think it's good for morale.
Yeah, I mean, sure.
If Matt hadn't jumped in with that, I was going to do a nice, neat segue into news because there's milestone news.
No one cares about milestone, no.
Oh my God!
You have just insulted a lot of people.
Pete's about to get canceled
for dissing milestone.
He's gonna go start his own other new podcast. Milestone's cool though. Like, come on, Static Shock. All right, that's the extent of my knowledge. An icon. I know icon.
We'll get to it. I'll go send the news. We got Solicits to talk about. We got the whole shebang. Solicits specifically, but yes.
I thought we agreed that shebang is now Shazadam.
The whole Shazadam. Yes, of course. Oh dear.
What happens when I have 2 cups of coffee, guys?
I'm actually. This is a weird Saturday for me too. I was up shockingly early today. So I've
4 p.m.
No, it was the AM. I was up in the AM today.
11 a.m.
11:59.
Yeah.
It was just before 10. Look, normally on a Saturday, I get up in just enough time to shower and read my books, and then it's time to record. That's usually my Saturday.
He means like 5 p.m.
Nice.
No, I need more time than that to read my books.
Depends how quick you read, suppose.
I'm not that quick. I'll probably read about 3 or 4 books an hour if I'm going at a nice casual pace. So I need a couple hours usually. But anyway, we're here to talk about my shocking Saturday routine. But to be honest, I got a good night's sleep for the first day. I feel like I've been having lots of shorter sleeps, but then naps to make up for it, and it's been making me kind of awkward, like grumpy, like throughout the week. So I am pleased.
I can testify to that.
To shut up. I can testify. I could. I had a good night's sleep is what I'm trying to say, okay? I had a good night's sleep.
Now we're going to ruin that good mood for you.
And I will not be brought down by this ginger abortion survivor that is Connor, okay?
Very strong. So I come from a deeply Catholic family, so no abortions are happening there.
Well, they tried. You're like, nope. CR21 will be here.
For the record, that was kind of a reference to It's Always Sunny, because Charlie was an abortion survivor. That was the joke. I do have a dark sense of humor. I don't know if I quite went that dark on my own without the prompting.
Without the prompting.
Yes. But I do think it's very funny.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I get it. I recently rewatched the thick of it, and I've been just casually dropping in quotes without thinking about it. And things like, when someone was messing up, I was like, "Oh, you're about as on the ball today as a dead seal," which is a quote from that. And then someone just gave me the dirtiest look. I was like, "Oops."
Is that someone Paige?
No, it was a word.
Okay.
Nah, she'll at least be vaguely aware of the niche TV that he watches that no one else has watched.
Yeah, but I just thought it was like a how dare you say that to me. Look.
Don't use your crappy TV lines on me.
Yeah.
How dare you? Speaking of, we did a vote for the top 50 TV shows of all time. The Male Fuzz TV community sent in their list, their best of lists. And the second half of the results revealing the top 25 is when this goes out, it'll be today. In fact, this comics podcast will go up a couple hours earlier than normal for the public because the live premiere of the top 50 part 2 is happening. So by the time you hear this, it's probably too late to go check it out. But I just want everyone to know that one of Connor's favourite shows, The Thick of It, did not even come close to placing remotely on that list.
I'll be surprised if it even got one submission, frankly. But
wait,
I'd have to check.
Didn't you put in a submission?
No, I didn't.
I didn't do a list because I didn't.
Wait, so I rounded up Alden and some other people to submit stuff, and you didn't even do one?
Hey, no, other people. Tara submitted a list. You submitted a list.
Yeah,
I submitted a list.
I know, but on the DL, there was maybe some collusion.
Collusion? What collusion? No collusion.
I gotta tweet at Alden as well and be like, "Hey, go kind of push to your crowd and get rebels on there."
And Connor couldn't even follow through.
I didn't have time.
CR21 strikes again.
For everyone, because this was actually right before we started the show. CR21 is basically Connor as a virus. Just
yes.
Just
I honestly thought that was on the show.
No, I was before the show. No.
Shambles.
I'm making it clear.
Shambles.
I make it clear.
Once again.
If it sounds similar to a name of a certain thing right now, that's because it was intended to be.
Yeah. Why do people watch us?
For this. For this right here. This is the gold that they come for.
People, find help, please.
Yes.
This is the quality content that drives people to buy our merch, apparently.
Yeah.
We got merch. Matt, you've got your own t-shirt now.
I know. I kind of want to buy the Connor one, but it's orange, so I can't. If it was red, sure, but orange, no go. Orange is a banned color in this household.
So what about orange?
My wife's favorite baseball team, their rival, are black and orange, so it's a no-go. Yeah. So, which sucks when, before the Knights, my favorite hockey team was the Ducks, and that's one of their colors. So I had to, just retro merch, the purple and jade, But orange is a no-go. Halloween's weird. Halloween's weird.
How can you do Halloween with the orange? You did black and orange.
Yeah, it's hard. Lots of purples, lots of blacks, lots of greens. Hardly any orange. Pumpkins? Nope. That's a lie. We have pumpkins.
Look, it's kind of the natural.
Can be made.
Yeah, it's kind of the natural color. There's not, unless you paint them, there's not really much you can do about it.
You can get white ones.
Yeah, we got a white one this year. We went out and did a pumpkin picking thing. It was real cool. But yeah, we had a nice white one that went bad real quick. It was not white for very long. Once it was separated from the stem, became a zombie pumpkin.
Maybe that's why they don't use white pumpkins for Halloween, because they go bad too quick.
Yeah,
probably.
Also, you know that pumpkins that like you make pumpkin pie a thing over there?
Not really.
It exists.
Okay. But it's not like a thing.
No, I mean the whole even pumpkin spice is a thing. Only really became a thing over here in the last couple of years, and even that's barely.
I've met one person who baked a pumpkin pie, and that is the extent of the pumpkin pie interaction I've had.
Yeah,
and
but I just made a pumpkin pie this year. I was 34 years old before I realized that you don't make pumpkin pie out of the jack-o'-lantern pumpkins. They have small little sugar pumpkins that they make pumpkin pie out of, and not a clue. So
I mean, it's you can say the same with like any sort of like apple pie. You use cooking apples, don't you? You don't just pick any.
Yeah, but I don't know when it becomes such an identified part of the holiday season, right? And it's on all the things. It's like an apple's an apple, right? Like a red apple looks like a red apple. These are small, tiny pumpkins that they, So it's not the same. It's weird. But anyways, Milestone Comics coming at you in 2021.
Probably.
Maybe.
Yeah, get excited. I suppose.
Not according to Pete though, because no one cares about Milestone.
Okay, there are dozens of you. Okay, dozens.
If you care about Milestone Comics, hashtag I care. Tweet that at Pete. All right, would you? Wooble89 hashtag I care about Milestone or whatever. Be creative. It's not my job. I'm here for banter.
Milestone and Wildstorm and all these other imprints
He's
that
like Milestone. We're like Tombstone Comics. Am I right?
If this is the banter that we have Matt for, what's the point?
I'm just saying, maybe I shouldn't have 2 cups of coffee before the show again.
I think next week should have 3 just to see how this far we can push this.
I don't know about that. I remember the doctor telling me back in October.
If we end up recording at a different time to usual, you might need 3.
Yeah. Maybe. I remember the doctor telling me back in October when I was having some gut issues and maybe heart stuff. He's like, "You're gonna have to not drink coffee." I was like, "Do you want the murder rate to go up, sir?" That's not gonna happen. Okay, just 1 cup. So as I've been good, this is the first time I've had multiple, and firing on all cylinders here.
Well, with all that said, May's DC Comics Solicits. We will dive in, and we have a bunch of stuff to talk about. Some of the stuff we kind of revealed last week. I say we, they were revealed last week, and we discussed them.
We broke all these stories.
Yes.
Yes.
But we'll work through the Solicits as we always do. And when we get to the one milestone thing that's there, I'll tangent out into the other article about the other things that are related. So first up, just go by the order they're on the article here. Looking at Newsarama in their list. Mr. Miracle, The Source of Freedom, issue 1. This is the 6-issue mini with the sort of the reintroduction of Shiloh Norman as Mr. Miracle. With writing by Brandon Easton and art by Ifiko Ozio, if I'm pronouncing that remotely right. So Easton's been doing the backup, right, in the Superman books.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, you kind of know what to expect. Maybe not with the art, but you know what to expect with the writing at least.
So real quick, when it comes to this format on the site, this is the first time they've done it like this, because I don't remember it being portioned like this.
I think they've changed it slightly. Yeah, I think they've reformatted.
Okay. I like it. I because got a little jump to side on here, makes it easy to go through and sorted. So I think that's cool.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I just noticed. Yeah, they've got you can skip to the trades if you want. Yeah.
That's neat. Exactly. It's on the up top on the side.
A little bar.
And it's a little bit cleaner. They're not all, kind of jammed together like they were.
No, that's not that for me. I'm on an older version, clearly. There is no bar.
CR21 at play.
Clearly, you're watching this show.
Even the May Solicits are not safe from CR21.
No.
It might be because I have it on a vertical screen, though, so it might be moved somewhere else.
Yeah.
We need to make a shirt that says "Marked Safe" from CR21.
Yeah. I assume 21 just because it's the year right now, Matt, right? That's why you picked that.
Yeah, that's the variant. And then next year it'll evolve
CR22. He'll have mutated. CR22.
Yeah. Okay, what's next? That's really exciting.
Joe, we need to get the actor. Admittedly, he's like 40 now, but we need to get the actor from Home Alone who says, "Kevin, you're such a disease," and have him replace Kevin with Connor.
It's probably on whatever that website is where you can get them to record fan
Cameo.
messages. Yeah.
There you go.
Cameo. Yeah.
Might be on there.
We get Connor, you're such a disease, and have him be wearing a CR21 shirt, as it says. All right, Wonder Girl issue 1 is next. Now we were looking forward to this, and we did some speculation last week due to some wording that suggested that it might have stopped being a mini and started being an ongoing. And that seems to be the case. So, good news. This is the Joelle Jones, both writing and on art, and Yara Flor in the present day, seeing what her, I assume, origin and.
Yeah, I just hope this doesn't go the same way as Catwoman did with Jones, almost biting off more. If she works a weave where she does, X amount of issues drawing, but as long as she keeps up the writing that's been in Future State, I'll be happy.
Yeah, dare I say, Catwoman almost kind of suffered a little bit by not really having that much buzz once it started coming out, whereas I think this already has insane buzz from Future State. People are all about Yara Flor right now.
I mean, I think we're all pretty much of the same opinion that Yara Flor is the best part of Future State, right?
Easy.
Yes.
So why wouldn't we want more of this?
Well, come on, let's not count Dick Stroke. More than that later.
Really, really, really nice, which I'm going to have to splurge the money on. The Bilquis Evely variant. Like,
you say,
come on.
You say splurge the money on. That's just the regular variant.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's the card stock. So it's an extra $1.
It's an extra $1, but still.
When we're talking about splurging for variants, though, you could be talking significantly more than that.
Yeah, but it's $1 for a more rigid cover. Like.
Yeah, but it's Evely who happened to work on the hit comic book issue, Wonder Woman issue 8.
That's right.
Yes.
But no, I also love Evely's art, so it's
it is very nice.
But yeah, so drawing Yara, like, this is, again, I haven't felt this way about a character since I started reading Kate Bishop, last year, which I know seems like just a jump on thing, but like, Kate's great. It's an instant thing. So Yara, I feel DC now has not like they were trying to match, but I do feel the same energy.
What's funny is we're going to have Kate Bishop in a Disney Plus show by the end of the year, give or take, and then we're going to have Yara Flor on the CW, like probably mid-season next year. So
everything's coming up, Millhouse.
It is. Not Maelstone, no. Nothing's coming up Maelstone.
Everything's coming up Milestone. That is the opposite of Millhouse.
Next up
I
is
can't wait for the angry tweets.
Future State Gotham issue 1, which we talked about this, last week when it comes to news. This is the anthology.
The interesting part for me, though, about this is that it's going to be in black and white. It mentions it just in the solicit text, like it's going to be a black and white series.
The whole series is just the first arc.
I mean, it says this black and white series, so I'm assuming beyond that. But I mean, they could change their mind.
Yeah, it has B&W listed right there in the solicit.
Interesting. So this is Josh Williamson and Dennis Culver writing with art by Giannis.
Well,
Milo
and Giannis.
Giannis, yes, there you go. Giannis, Milo and Giannis. Anyway, so this is a continuation of the Red Hood story. So it's kind of weird that it's starting with Red Hood, and we still kind of want to read it. So credit to Williamson for making us want to continue that story. At least so far. We haven't read the second part yet, so maybe I'll shit the bed in part 2.
It could happen.
But so far, we're not opposed to this. But anyway, but we know that the second arc might go on to be about next Batman. It might go on to be about Huntress. It might go on to be about Grifter even. Although Grifter's actually got back up in the anthology, the actual
Red Hood though.
Anthology one. That's true. Yeah, that's true. So that doesn't mean they can't double up with this book.
Yeah.
And then I've got a new thing that popped up this week, which is Legends of the Dark Knight issue 1. This is a digital first book, which is, again, it's physical issue out in May. It'll be starting a little bit earlier digitally. This is Derek Robertson writing, with art also by Derek Robertson. I'll read the text, but since this is a completely new thing. The iconic series Legends of the Dark Knight is back. Comic icons and rising stars alike will tell digital first stories across the Batman mythos, beginning with comics legend and co-creator of The Boys, Derek Robertson, writing and drawing an epic 3-issue supervillain crime drama. A new player has arrived on the scene in Gotham City and is selling deadly chemicals to the worst villains in town, Mr. Freeze and the Penguin, and even the Joker. It's up to Batman to stop the villains, track down the supplier, and save Gotham City once more. I mean, it sounds pretty, typical story-wise, but Upcoming stories will have art by Stephanie Phillips, Brandon Thomas, Becky Clunan, Matt Rosenberg's going to be joining, I assume, on writing, Brandon Easton, and more. So
I think what's interesting about that line you've just mentioned with all those creators is a lot of them are on Future State stories and Gotham stories specifically.
Yeah, I mean, Legends of the Dark Knight to me was always like, oh, we can go back and do Batman stories that are set early in his career and still be kind of in continuity, but we're doing stuff earlier in the timeline. So we can do, his first meeting properly with a certain villain or his first encounter with this or that.
Or, I mean, you could even go into the future a little bit if you wanted to.
I mean, you could.
I suspect this might be doing that more than the past.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's the thing. And we talked about this, when the next Batman digital first came out. There's another one on here as well that I think it'll apply to where I think we'll check this out on the show, but we'll check it out when it comes out in physical. Even if we are reading the digital version, we'll treat it as if we are reading the physical version, so there's enough to talk about because the digital chapters are a bit on the slim side. The only thing we have to be careful of is that some digital books that go physical have 2 digital books per issue, and some have 3 per issue. You have to kind of watch and see what it is.
These ones are 2, they said in the announcement, which is kind of weird on the pricing. That's because they're 99 cents for the digital issues, but then it's a $3.99 print book, so it is like double the cost if you want it in print.
Pages and paper and staples cost money, I guess. That's my.
I mean, that is true, but still, that's quite the hike. It seems anyway, at least to me.
What that says to me is that all the other books should go down in price digitally to have a similar.
Well, they tried
difference.
that for like 2 years. Remember?
Only in some books. They didn't try it in every book.
No, but quite a few went down like $1, didn't they?
I'd be more than happy for them to try it again.
Yeah. For anyone interested, these they did confirm it'll be the 10-page chapters digitally, because I think there is some coming up that are full issue length that will be digital as well.
Yeah.
But they're starting digitally April 2nd, so about 6 weeks before this first issue drops in print.
Yeah, so we'll look at it when it comes out physically, even if, I'll still be reading it digitally, but I'll be treating it as if I'm reading the physical one, which is a little confusing, but it just makes sense.
Yeah, I think what's interesting is how far behind this print will be, because by the time this issue drops in print, this entire first arc of 6 digital chapters, I'm assuming, will be over.
Yeah, and that's not that irregular, I don't think, for these digital books. It varies, obviously, wildly between them. There doesn't seem to be a set thing. It seems to be different for every book.
Yeah.
But yeah, it makes sense. 2 10-page chapters, 1 20-page comic. Because comics, these days are usually 20 pages, a normal comic. So
yep.
It makes sense. So that's Legends of the Dark Knight. And then Milestone Returns, Infinite Edition, Issue 0. What an obnoxious title. This is a slightly oversized. Like, I'm just playing into the joke now, right?
Did anyone have on their bingo card this week take shots at Milestone?
Not at all.
So this is about an annual size, 48-page book, $5. Written by Reginald Hoodlin, art by Dennis Cowan, Bill Sienkiewicz, and others. And this leads into 3 digital first books, which are coming later in the year, which I'll tell you about in a second. So this has got a main story, which is kind of just to reintroduce the Milestone comics and where they are now. The backup, though, is a 17-page primer story that was originally released online during the fandom event. So the actual back chunk of this is not new material per se; it's just relevant material.
It's 24-page of new story, and then the rest is that digital story put into print.
So that's what's coming out in May. So this is Milestone Returns Infinite Edition Issue 0. And then the digital first that are coming later, which also got sort of a separate news item. Static's getting a book that's digital first. That's coming out. This was actually one that was already technically announced. It was meant to be coming out in February, this month, but obviously get pushed back to tie into the rest of all this stuff. But that's coming out in April, so this is still coming out a little bit before the one shot is. And then you have Icon and Rocket, which is coming out starting June 21st digitally. And then you have Hardware, which is coming out starting on August 23rd digitally. And these are 6-issue minis, which would lead me to believe they're probably just normal size.
They are. Well, we know for certain that Static is. They mentioned that is 20 pages per issue, and it's a reasonable assumption to assume that the others are, because they're all, one of 6.
Yeah, so you'd expect 6 normal size issues.
Yes, but all still digital first, I believe.
My jokes aside, I actually do think it's quite smart to try and do normal comic book formats with these smaller characters. It probably wouldn't sell a lot of physical books. This is probably quite a smart thing to try.
Yeah, this is kind of what they had from the what started as the Walmart reprints, but have gone into original content since then.
Yeah,
which were they varied in page count between like 15 and 25, but they were standard page layout, not the half-page digital things. So they've obviously got data that shows that it can work and can sell. So it definitely makes sense for them to try it more.
Yeah, and if we are going to try these, then we can just try them when they come out. We don't have to wait for the shorter chapters to pile up a little bit.
Well, yeah, and these don't even have print editions announced yet.
As of yet, they might just go straight to trade. It might be like the physical just go straight to trade. Maybe
That's,
that would be pretty cool.
That's what they're doing with the Deceased digital. That's just going straight to a hardcover release. There's no print singles.
Yeah, so I can see that. Next up, we have a one shot. DC love to occasionally do these big 100-page $10 one shots. This is coming from a fairly nice place though. This is DC Festival of Heroes, the Asian Superhero Celebration issue 1, with a long list of names. I think most of whom, if maybe not all, are Asian creators.
Yeah,
would it seem so?
Yeah, it seems so. I mean, there's 1 or 2 that I don't actually know for sure, which is why I'm just putting in that maybe not every single one, but most of them definitely are. And yeah, so this is a one shot coming out in May, obviously. The cover's got Cassandra Cain on there. It's got Katana,
Ryan Choi.
Ryan Choi's in there. Cheshire's there.
Emiko.
New Superman's in the background there. So no, that's a nice idea.
Exactly how many Asian American heroes, or even just Asian heroes and villains, DC has until you put them all on one cover.
Yeah, and they're not like small characters.
No,
some of them are
really
pretty
cool.
prominent.
So I mean, it's obvious what the format this is going to be. It's going to be a bunch of 8 to 10 page stories, give or take, with featuring these characters one by one. So
and it helps too that I like most of them. So if I wasn't already inclined by the creators, I like these characters.
It's a frustrating one for me because I'm annoyed by all the 100-page giants.
Yeah.
Most of them have maybe one story in that I like, and the rest are just fine. But at the same time, it's like I appreciate the effort here of what they're doing, of kind of actually pushing something positive rather than just, oh, here's a character.
I mean, I think either this week or next week had the Valentine's special. Probably this week.
It was this week.
I think it was this week.
Had the Valentine's special, and it was probably fine. But it's one of those things where we've got a week of books to read. Unless those 100-page things seem like they might be important, or it's a quiet week. We tend to skip over them now just because they are just such a slog to add on to the regular week of books.
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of want to do this one because it's coming from a really nice place. It's not just, we're trying to make money, so we're going to...
Kind of depends how busy the week is still, doesn't it?
Yeah. But even then, I think, in just good faith, if we wanted to, we could kind of break it up, if it is a busier week, if we really want to cover. Because I do know, like, Pete really does love Cassandra Cain as a character.
Oh, for sure.
Like...
Yeah, and, the Ram V story is with a character from his Catwoman book, so there might be some tie-in with that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the names of Jean Lun Yang, Greg Pak.
Yeah.
Greg Pak's a writer that I've been way into for a long time now. So
I've enjoyed Alyssa Wong. I think is doing the current Afra book over at Marvel for that stuff. I've been enjoying that.
But yeah, these are all names like depending on the week. I'm looking at that week that it comes out, and it looks like it's the first week of May. Depending how packed that is.
It's probably just a typo in the solicit, but the date's actually one off because every other book that's out that week is the 4th. So that's actually is listed here as the Wednesday, but it's probably just a typo. It's probably just meant to be the 4th still.
Right.
I'm sure it's still going to be in comic shops with all the rest of the DC books.
It probably is, but I noticed that when I was looking through them.
Yeah, I'm just saying, it is a really cool thing that they're doing. Instead of like I think it was Connor that said, instead of just a character, like they did a, I don't want to say a statement, but like, hey, look at all these cool characters that, and look at some other creators.
It's almost I mean, I don't know if this necessarily applies to like every Asian culture anyway. But I mean, given that Lunar New Year just started, it would have been maybe nice to have it out this month for that. But random May is as good a time as anyway. So
better just it happen at some point than never.
Yeah, for sure. So maybe they can do other spotlights like this where they highlight another group or another. Maybe like a book, featuring like, here's all the gay characters we have at DC, and let's celebrate them and have gay creators do stories.
They've kind of been having other history of the DC universe, which has been covering a lot of the black characters.
Yeah. So next up we got another one shot. This is an interesting one that kind of also just popped up. This is Stargirl's Spring Break special, written by Jeff Johns with art by Todd Nuck. So this is a 48-page one shot, $6 book out the first week of May. And I'll just read the text here just to start us off here. Obviously, Johns is still working on the show. Season 2 of the show is presumably going to be sometime this summer. It's listed as a summer show. So Courtney Whitmore's spring break plans aren't like your average high schoolers. Instead of hanging out with friends, she's heading out on an adventure with her stepfather, Pat Dugan, aka Stripe, and teaming up with his former team, the Seven Soldiers of Victory. The soldiers are forced to reunite again to unearth the secret 8th Soldier of Victory, but what other secrets lie buried, and what does it all mean for Courtney's future as Stargirl? So that last line there is the most interesting part to me, because them even sort of saying, what does this mean for the future of Stargirl? It could mean nothing, but it could also mean that there is some sort of future in mind.
I mean, definitely something for Courtney. Whether or not that's Stargirl or not remains to be seen.
Yeah. Oh, that's true. That's true.
Do the Seven Soldiers play into the show? So I still haven't seen it.
The Shining Knights there.
Okay.
There's a reference to them existing. Right. Through that. There's like a photo of them at one point, so they might be more relevant later. But
I'm just saying, this is like the most John's thing where he takes something that normally, was tangentially related to the character, and then like, there's 7 Soldiers of Victory. What if there was an 8th? And we just never knew about it. And that comes from a place of love, because I love Johns, right? But like, that this is the 7 kingdoms of Atlantis, and the 7 emotional spectrum core.
I mean, if this is leading to a mini or something that Johns is going to write, whether it's a Stargirl mini, whether it's a 7 Soldiers mini, whether it's just something else that's got a name, then that's cool. That's exciting. I like the idea of getting a Jeff Johns story later in the year.
I would actually not be surprised if it's not a Jeff Johns thing that's coming up, and more this is him handing off the character to say, hey, someone else can, take the reins with her now, because he has still been the predominant voice for her over the years.
I mean, predominant, some would say only. But also she popped up.
I mean, she's popped up here or there, I'm sure.
I mean, we realistically weren't really expecting any Jeff Johns books announcements for a long time, so this just kind of popped up and was like, oh, a Jeff Johns book of some kind. This is interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think we were expecting maybe this one issue with Stargirl, because we did talk about how she's got that story in the Infinite Frontier one shot, and and that led us to some speculation. Maybe they're going to follow up on that, because it seemed random to just throw in a Stargirl story by Johns in that.
That said, though, I still feel like that only being for this one shot still feels a bit light. Like, giving her a slot in that comic makes it feel like there's a bigger plan than just a one shot in May and that's it. That doesn't necessarily mean it'll be Johns that's doing it, admittedly, beyond this. It could be anything. Could just be she's going to team up with the JSA when they show up or something, I don't know. But so Stargirl Spring Break specials out in May. And maybe him just doing these random one-shots that all kind of connect over time is maybe what he can fit into his schedule, given that he's running a TV show now. I don't know.
Along with something else that's coming up in the Solicits.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure the other thing that's coming up later in the Solicits, he finished writing like 3 years ago. So, next up, Justice League Last Ride issue 1. This is another digital first, coming out in May. And this is, interestingly, Chip Zdarsky writing with Miguel Medoncha on the art. So this is another one where I looked at it and went, oh, we definitely have to talk about this on the show. Whatever format it makes sense for us to talk about it in, we have to check out Zdarsky's Justice League. Why wouldn't we do it?
This is another one where it's 2 digital chapters per print issue.
So we'll tackle it when the print issue comes out, as if we're reading the print, even if we're reading it digitally, which some of us might be, some of us might not be. But
and for anyone who is reading it digitally or plans to read it digitally. April 14th, this starts.
So, I have really enjoyed what I've read of his Daredevil. I am all about reading some Zdarsky DC material. So I'm curious. So here's the description for this one, because obviously this is just a standalone story. Once the most powerful group in the world, the Justice League was destroyed by tragedy and time, disbanding under a veil of mistrust and anger. Now, on the eve of the universe's greatest murder trial, the League must come together one last time. But can Superman and Batman bury the past before the cosmos' greatest villain buries them? So it's kind of a Justice League Returns story, I guess, from that.
Kind of. Obviously, something has gone bad between Superman and Batman. And this is the sort of thing where if this was a continuity book, we'd all be so annoyed. But hey, it's just a random digital first. Do what you want.
Yeah.
But it's also Zdarsky. So it's not like he doesn't do tried and true, right?
No,
like he might send up certain things, but it's not going to be what we think it is. You know, from what I've read about his Daredevil, you know,
very good.
It's very Daredevil, but it's also Daredevil you've never read before, which is nice. Yeah. So.
Yeah. So no, I'm actually kind of pumped to see what Zdarsky does with Justice League. It kind of feeds into again that they're expanding the prominence of their digital books, and that we do kind of have to start paying attention to them a little bit more than we have done in the past.
It does feel like they've got like two separate types of digital books now, because you've got the ones that are just the ongoing anthology, like here's an issue of just they've got, I think there's a Harley Quinn one going right now, and the Superman one's going, just here's a random issue this week. And then you've got on the opposite end of the scale these, which are here's what could have been just a 6-issue mini or 8-issue miniseries in this case, or 6 issues in some of the others, could have just been a traditional miniseries, but they're choosing to publish them digital first. Maybe it's that they're smaller; they don't want to oversaturate the market with too many books at once. I don't know, but I'm really interested to see how it pans out.
Oh yeah, a couple of years ago, this would just been a mini. You don't put this writer on a book, and sort of. Like, this writer on this book makes it feel like a proper thing that could have sold a mini, and probably will still sell a mini in its physical form, but this shows that they're treating the digital like a more of a it's not just the offshoot.
Talent towards it. It's not just here's some random stuff, because like you say, this is it's Justice League, so a Justice League book would probably sell well enough just on that alone, and Zdarsky's a reasonably liked name in the industry. Yeah.
So.
But no, and I'm sure he had the idea for it. This doesn't seem like it came from editorial being like, hey, Chip, you have a Batman versus Superman end of the Justice League story?
Although I can imagine, funny you should say that.
Yeah. Well, I can see him going, hey, it'd be cool if you guys let me tell the story. And they go, you know what? Go ahead. It's digital first, though. So whatever you do can be easily undone. But my favorite thing about Chip still is that he would sign for Stan Lee's signature. If you wanted his signature, it was free. But if you wanted Stan's, it cost $2 or something like that. It's hilarious.
That's pretty funny. I also think it's a case of where, because they are shifting more towards digital, you are feeling the actual original print books are, if you're not counting the books that are digital first as well, the line has shrunk a bit. So unless you actually want to be really narrowing down your options for reading, you kind of have to start paying attention to these books that were digital first.
I think definitely if you want the smaller side stories, like obviously this one, I think if Deceased started now, as opposed to 2 years ago, whenever that was, a year and a half, it would probably be a digital first.
I think that's the important thing, is that some of these may end up being the most exciting books that are out in the months they're coming out, because as we Deceased was like a highlight for its duration, and I think this is kind of the point, is that we have to stop thinking of digital being the separate kind of we don't have to pay attention to it, it's not important. Like, no, some of the best minis might be coming out of digital now. So but yeah, so that's Justice League Last Ride, issue 1. And then what we were alluding to earlier with Jeff Johns, Batman Earth 1 Volume 3, with Gary Frank and John Seibel on art, is finally coming out in that'll be June. I'm trying to process the American way you write the date. It's June.
I have to think about it as well.
June.
Yeah, well, it's really easy when the day is over 12, because it's just obvious, because that number couldn't be a month. But when it's two numbers that could be the month, I have to think about it.
Right, you just have to remember, we say June 8th, not 8th of June.
Yes.
So that's why it's written that way.
Except for 4th of July. You don't say you walk around saying 4th of July all the time.
But that's a celebration of breaking the yoke from your guys' old country.
So you celebrate it by spending it telling us that we're right.
Or you just call it Independence Day.
Hey, don't
blow up a piece of the country.
Yeah, don't say we. Don't associate me with English people. I don't want any part of it.
Well, you were part of that back then. I've been listening to the Revolutions podcast, so I kind of know.
I'm taking no part of it.
At that time, it was we. So,
there was never a we. It was it was all conspiracy.
Y'all had a vote a couple years ago, and you kind of determined there was a we.
Hey, trust me, the country's very split on that.
Then, but it still came out in one direction.
Yeah.
We'll see how that. If we get a second one, we'll see how that goes on time 2.
Yeah, good luck begging for permission for a second vote.
I'll just say after 2016, because there was also a vote in the UK in 2016, which did not go very well. And I think after that one, Scotland's opinion might have swerved a bit more strongly in one direction.
It might.
Say, your guys' process of dissolving governments. It's a good thing to hear sometimes.
Well, speaking of World's End. Deceased Hope at World's End hardcover is mentioned earlier, just coming out. Yep. That's down the a bunch more of those original graphic novels, the teen stuff. We got I Am Not Starfire. It's a really funny title.
Well, about the World's End thing, do you think because it's in hardcover first, it's going to be that wide screen style? Because that's how that book was.
It could. It probably has dimensions here.
It would have mentioned it if it was a different trim.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, don't mention it. Yeah.
It doesn't. But I was just thinking about that because it was one of those books that was widescreen format and digital.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, but I'm Not Starfire. This is hilarious.
Yeah.
This is the one that's about Starfire's daughter, basically just trying to be like, get out of her mother's shadow.
Yeah. So this is Mariko Tamaki writing with Yoshi Ushitanu on the art. So I just thought it was funny because of the running Starfire joke.
This is one I've seen like guys our age complain about, and I want to tell them, you don't have to read it. Like it's not.
it's not for you. That's okay.
If you want to read it, go ahead. But if you don't, don't complain that this exists when it's not for you. Because I know my niece who loves Starfire. This is something that's probably going to be on her radar, and to know that's really cool. That there is something for her. And maybe I'll read it before I give it to her. I don't know.
Yeah. That's I Am Not Starfire and Preacher. Those 2 books for Matt's niece.
And wait, Preacher?
He was really trying to think, what's the most extreme one I can think of off the top of my head?
It's probably not the most extreme one, but it's definitely the first one that put it in my head. Definitely for a mature audience.
Yeah. No, she's into anime now, so I've already lost her.
Yeah, she's lost cause.
There's the Batman manga.
She likes My Hero Academia, which I have to go and ask my friends about.
That's Anime Hogwarts.
Yeah. Or Anime X-Men.
Man, I don't even think you could get worse than Hogwarts, but Anime Hogwarts sounds like a living nightmare.
Yeah. For Pete. But anyways, I that's cool that this exists, and I'm glad that the young adult line is still going strong. It seems.
Yeah, they're putting them out pretty consistently, and some of them I've read some of them. They're quite good. Not all of them.
Did you read them? Did you read the Danielle Pope Mara one?
Yes, I did.
Was that pretty good?
It was solid. Not my favorite that I read, but it was solid, gorgeous book. Yeah.
Yeah, the art looked great. That's why I remember it.
Yeah. So I'm alright. The rest of the regular books back sort of into. I mean, the order's still a bit all over the place, but I mean we're at regular book territory now. Action Comics 1031 and Superman 31, both by Johnson. Both have backup still. So Warworld Rising Part 2 in Action Comics is the main story. And The One Who Fell Part 2 is the main story in Superman. Notably, because if you remember, March's issues of each are a 2-part story that cross over between the 2 books, whereas then in April going on, it's they've both got their own arcs. So
they're split. Yeah.
So that's just keeping that going, making it very obvious.
And the backup in Superman is Jimmy Olsen one. Did we know about that from last month, or is that new for this month? I don't remember it.
Oh, I can't remember now. I can't remember.
No, I think we knew about it because it was the Tales of Metropolis, and I think we thought it might be the Jimmy Olsen stuff.
Okay.
But it's got Gangbuster and Loose Cannon, it also says, so I'm sure it'll be like one of these revolving door style ones.
It mentions it's Jimmy trying to build a backup Justice League squad, basically, for Metropolis.
That's, man.
Yeah,
makes me miss Fraction's Jimmy book, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, backup story and actions by Becky Cloonan. Backup story in Superman is by Sam Basri. So, Sean Lewis. Sorry, yeah. Like the new formats throw me off here. Right, they're on the same line. I need to process it. So it's just Superman books for me. American Vampire 1976 issue 8. It's coming out. Batman 108. Joe, I'm still getting used to these being monthly now. There's no like 2 Batman issues in the Solicits anymore. Yeah. It's weird. But it's good because it opens up the opportunity to actually try out other books like these digital books, because otherwise we might be too bogged down. But yeah, so I don't know what to say unless you want to dive into the text itself. But I mean, just the next part.
No, we mentioned before. It's the Miracle Molly debut.
Yeah.
Miracle Molly, yeah. I feel like if I was being cynical, and after what happened with Punchline, I feel like Tynan has developed a thing going like, hey, I can gen up some extra money by creating these new characters, But after reading his newsletter, I know that's definitely not the.
Yeah, I can definitely see just from an outside perspective why it can look like that, but I don't believe.
I don't think he's not after reading that breakdown of how he feels the comic industry is with the different tiers.
Yeah, this was like a genuine attempt to move forward rather than let's make some money.
Right. So.
Yeah, Batman Black and White issue 6 is next. Anthology issue. It's a final issue as well. Yeah.
Hey, someone wants to make Connor read that just first story. It's Snyder and JR. So.
Yeah, but then there's a Nick Darrington story after that.
I know, but don't pay attention to that. Just pay him to read the Snyder and JR one.
Well, it's funny because it's kind of, I mean, we've kind of had almost an unwritten rule that for the Patreon books that once you're over annual size, which will stretch to 50 pages, like beyond that it's too big for that because obviously it's just there's too much reading. And this is actually just under that, but I do love the idea of like an anthology coming out where someone really wants you to read like the 2 really bad stories, so they just say, no, I'm going to pay for the book, but these you can read the rest if you want, but I'm not paying for that. I'm paying for these 2 stories. It's these 2 you need to read. It's really funny to me.
It could happen, I suppose.
Yeah. Next up, so obviously the news here is the title change for this next one. So Tom Taylor's Batman book was called Batman the Dark Knight last month, but it's been changed to Batman the Detective. Obviously the first issue reflects that change too. So issue 2, of course, coming out in May. I kind of like it just because it feels a bit more unique, and it's not confusing because there's like 2 or 3 other series that have been called Batman the Dark Knight. I kind of like now that I can just say Batman the Detective, and I'll think
part of it as well is they're launching this Legends of the Dark Knight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So they're like,
well, there's that, and then you read what the blurb's about, and they bring up Henry Ducard, and that's in canon, that's who he learned detective skills from, so
it does make me
leaning into that side is cool.
It makes me think that maybe they want to reuse the title as well, like not the other one, but this one, as Batman the Detective. Maybe there'll be a second arc. I know this is still technically listed as a mini, but maybe there'll be another one with someone else as a team, but using that title again.
We know that Taylor likes to do mini stories like this, where he takes a break in between, like just like a deceased. So maybe I'll have like Batman the Detective, whatever. So
alternative,
but no, it's cool.
Yeah, alternative, I could totally see Taylor coming back and doing a sequel, but it'll be called something else. Like it'll be Batman the something, and it'll be relevant to whatever the story is for the second story. Because I don't know, it's a possibility. Batman Catwoman issue 6, continuing the Tom King 12-issue book. That's out in May. Phantasm right there on the cover, which is nice to see. Batman and Scooby-Doo Mysteries issue 2. I forgot this was a thing from last month, but there we go. Batman Superman issue 18, Jean Ling Yang, Ivan Reis. That's continuing on. Batman Urban Legends issue 3, continuing. This is of course the $8 anthology Gotham book with various stories. Is there? I don't think there's any new ones yet. I think it's just the 3 that have been going. Which is...
the Outsiders one's ending this issue though, so there should be a new one next month.
Yeah, so obviously We still have the Grifter one, which will be Rosenberg, because that's just been doing that. Because technically he's already been doing it in the backups. In fact, we have one this week to talk about. We got the Red Hood story and the Outsiders one. The Outsider one's ending, so we'll presumably have at least one new story out of the three in June's batch, which would be cool. I'm interested to see what it is. I am generally enjoying the Outsiders story that we've had so far. I'm enjoying, surprisingly, the Grifter one's all right. So
I just like Outsiders. I think that's just a title that I enjoy, and since they brought it back in Rebirth, in the pages of Detective Comics first, right? It's been pretty solid.
It's interesting that the these Outsiders, the two issues we've had it in Future State, and then this coming up has made me want to go back and retry the Outsiders book, because I never thought it was bad. I just kind of didn't love it. But I mean, maybe I'll burn through it just because obviously in that they refer back to characters, and maybe they will in this part of the story as well.
Yeah, maybe.
And I'm sure it's all on DC Universe by now.
If it's not, it will be soon.
More than likely.
Yeah, maybe one or two are still left to go up, but it'll be about it. So keep in mind, this is a 64-page book, so this is like 3 full-sized issues of stories, so they're all full-sized chapters.
Which does make the price feel reasonable, because it's only $8.
Yeah.
As opposed to if these were all separate books and you wanted all 3, it would have been 12.
12. Yeah, you're basically getting like buy 2 get 1 free, but you have to get the 3. You can't just get 1.
As long as you like 2 of the stories in it, you can feel like you got your money's worth.
Yes. There you go. So that's Urban Legends issue 3. Catwoman 31, continuing Ram V's run. Obviously, we're super pumped on that, so that's cool. Challenge of the Super Sons issue 2. This is another one that's reprinting the digital first book. So there you go. That's still Tamaki as well. Crime Syndicate issue 3, that miniseries, which is not started yet, so we still don't have an opinion on this as if it's good or not. Obviously, we want it to be good, but we don't know yet. So, but hopefully it is. Detective Comics 1036. Continuing Tamaki's run. We have a Huntress backup story, which is continuing from the previous one, but
yeah, I think Huntress is the main story as well.
Yeah, I just have the thought now of Clayton Henry drawing Huntress's like headpiece.
It's gonna be so long.
How massive it's gonna look.
Yeah, because he's doing the backup. Dan Mora is still the main artist on the book, but no, I'm excited for Huntress to be sort of back in the fray for a little bit. She's been kind of absent for a while, and I feel like she was relegated to the weird Birds of Prey for the New 52, and then since then
gone.
Yeah, she hasn't
really done anything.
She was in Batgirl on the Birds of Prey, which was again also kind of short-lived and not super like notable.
Yeah, I'm just glad they rectified the whole Grayson version of her with, the other Elena Bertinelli.
Yeah,
it's more traditional. Like, that's a character that I feel, I don't know, like a backup might be a perfect place for her, but like throw her in that Gotham one once they're done with this.
Sure.
I would definitely read that.
I mean, I think that's the thing about that anthology, because there's so much potential of giving characters who would never get their own books like a 3 or 4 issue arc.
Just throw in whoever you want, see what sticks, see what gets a good reception.
Yeah.
And then, if there is a lot of positive reception to one story, you can give them a separate mini.
I almost wish there was a second one that wasn't specifically Superman, but was maybe just a second one for other non-Bat characters to try other characters.
Like a Justice League branded.
I think that's kind of where we're getting a lot of the digital first stories for. Rather than lumping them into one anthology, they're just digital first.
Yeah, but anthology books are kind of cool that way. Like, if you don't mind the bigger price point, right? But the fact that you can go in there and it's almost like a grab bag, I kind of like that. If there's because I kind of wanted that for the Flash for a while. There's so many Flash characters that haven't been used.
Yeah, it's basically how all British comics are done as well. So
the main Flash book, hell, the main Green Lantern book could be this, because we've got like 7 or 8 Earth Green Lanterns now. I mean, you could easily have like 3 ongoing Green Lantern stories at a time in one book.
Yeah, or even if they want to play it safe, have one that's just whichever main lantern you want at the time, and then have your second lantern book be the anthology.
Yeah. I'm just thinking, if you go back to when there was like 3 or 4 Lantern books, like imagine if that was just one big book that came out every month and they were all just packaged together. It wouldn't have always been for the best because sometimes the other ones weren't as good, but you know, there's some. Anyway, the Dreaming Waking Hours issue 10 is coming out. The Flash 770, which I'm still very skeptical about.
I'm really annoyed because I really hate everything that it's saying and then the solicit text every issue, but then I'm like, oh, it's got Jay on the cover.
Jay's on the cover, yeah. On the variant as well. He's on both.
Don't look at the variant cover because you'll get flashbacks to New 52.
Too late.
Yeah. It's a bummer.
Green Lantern issue 2. Up in the air in this one as well. We'll see how it is. Again, this is a backup.
For some reason, the cover still says issue 1.
So it does. Obviously, it's just a typo. But
yeah, I'm sure they'll fix that by the time it releases.
Yeah,
it'd be funny if
that variant looks fantastic.
Oh, the Joe one? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's neat. You know, that's neat.
She's upon us.
Yeah, as much as we didn't like the Future State book, I'm going to try issue 1 with a real positive chance because I really want a good Green Lantern book. So they're getting a fair chance for issue 1. They really are. And the exercise art won't certainly hurt it.
Marco Santucci on art as well, though, in this issue?
For the backup, I think, yeah.
Oh, is that just the backup?
Well, I don't know. I assume so.
No, it doesn't seem like there's a...
It's a 40-page book. Maybe it's just one.
It's actually really interesting because it doesn't mention a backup in the solicit text.
No. Oh, maybe it is just a rare case of they're just giving all 40 pages to the one story. Well,
but it's Soy and Santucci, so unless Santucci's filling in certain pages, you know what I mean?
Maybe we'll cut to another lantern in a different sector, so they'll use that to excuse the art change or something. I don't know. But yeah, they're bringing Joe Mullen into the main Green Lantern book. I mean, obviously we mentioned the cover, but like it straight up says in the text, like she's going to get involved with the other lanterns now. So it is exciting that they're doing that because we've enjoyed her introduction. Your mic's going.
Your mic's going.
Way ahead of you, Connor.
I mean, you went way ahead of me. It came through at the exact same time as I was saying it.
I was ahead of you on my end. The recording will show that. Yes. Let the recording show.
What's next?
that Connor was late. Harley Quinn issue 3. That's still going. Was that a hand gesture from Connor there that I just caught in the side of my eye?
No, nothing. That is such an ugly cover, isn't it?
The Harley. Oh yeah, it's absolutely. It's basically disgusting, quite frankly.
It bums me out that it's Ross Mullen art because reading the text, it seems like I would enjoy the story if not for the art. So,
me too, man.
This is a CR21 infected issue.
It is.
Of the comic
it
book.
is.
Yeah. Joker issue 3 coming out. Again, back up with the punchline. You know, nothing much to add really. Continuation, tying on the main book or main story. He's also in the backup with Sam Johns. Justice League 61, continuing Bendis' Justice League is out. Obviously, Ram V still doing Justice League Dark in the backup. So cool, yeah, not much to say. Looney Tunes 260, they're still doing that. Of course, Mad Magazine issue 20, still doing that. Man-Bat issue 4, continuing the mini, and this is one of these cases where I'm happy to say that now that we've had issue 1, we're actually feeling quite good about this, and we're...
Yep.
Yeah.
Did you guys realize this was 5 issues and not 6?
I don't think I did, no, but it is 5, so...
It is. I was under the impression it was 6. I don't know if maybe something's changed or if we just forgot.
We may have just forgot. If it did change, it wouldn't be surprising if it changed in that long gap before it got resolicited finally, because it, you know, at which point I'm sure it was written to fit 5 issues.
I would like to think so. Yeah. Yes, they haven't just scrapped one issue. For you guys,
there'll be a cliffhanger at the end of issue 5,
or it's just missing what was issue 5. And they just jump straight to 6.
Next Batman Second Son issue 2, second of 4 issues of the digital first. This is one where they're bundling, I think, 3 chapters per physical issue. So again, we're going to be checking this out because we've been really digging the Future State story. So that's issue 2 coming out in May. We got Nightwing issue 80 continuing Taylor's run. Looking forward to that. That cover's gorgeous.
What a variant.
I was talking about the main cover. What's the variant look like? Oh, the variant's very nice too. Yeah.
Jamal Campbell on the variant is just
that variant is poster worthy.
It is,
and not just because the Superman S shirt.
I was going to say the Superman shirt at the front is a nice touch.
No, yeah, but just the logo in the shape that he's making.
For anyone who's not seeing this, Nightwing is basically doing a handstand with one arm on a clothesline, and then with his feet, he's kicking up the. Physically, I mean, physics says this is impossible, but by the by, But he's basically with his feet making the top of the Nightwing logo, so that there's like an opening between the two clotheslines, making the Nightwing logo in the sort of the early morning sky of I was gonna say Gotham, and then Metropolis.
No, Bloodhaven.
Is it Bloodhaven? Okay. I don't know. Maybe he went to Metropolis for an issue. I don't know. There's a Superman shirt in the foreground.
People still like Superman in Bloodhaven, I'm sure.
But it's a knockoff shirt that they got from like a dodgy street vendor.
So half the ones in Metropolis.
Still a shirt. It still wears the same.
Other the DC Rebirth issue 4 is out. Well, I was going to say wrapping up. That's a 5 issue, but I thought it was 4 for some reason. Okay, there's one more. We got Robin issue 2. That's the Joshua Williamson run that started in April. So that's still going. Rorschach issue 8 is coming out in May. Ruby Justice League issue 2. This Ruby thing still a thing. Sensational Wonder Woman issue 3. This is the digital first collection, which is obviously starting next month. When I say starting next month, I mean the collections are the print issues are starting next month.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the digitals are on like issue 3 or 4 already.
Yeah. Strange Adventures issue 10. So we'll be nearing the end of that in May. Well, that'll be ending in July. Strange Adventures.
Is that the most drastically different that their covers have been yet for that book?
Mm-hmm.
I think so. I mean, thematically there's a similar idea between them, but they are very different. I wonder if that's maybe a sign that there's something in the story is going to justify why they're getting more different.
Someone asked Shaner who comes up with the ideas, because they were putting up, this week was artists putting up like the sketch and then the final product.
Yes.
And someone asked Shaner who picks like the design, because his sketch for the first issue was slightly off, right? It was a different angle. And he says, "Oh no, we do. Me and Mitch get together and decide what we're going to do. And then we go from there. And it really is collaborative." And so this one, that's ultimately what it feels like that they both went like, we're going to do like this red and blue thing, but we're going to make it diverge even more. So,
yeah. Interesting.
Really cool.
I just mentioned it because obviously all their covers have been similar takes on the same idea, basically.
Right.
Yeah. So that's that. Suicide Squad issue 3 coming out, and I feel bad for Suicide Squad because it's basically for us, we've basically just called it DOA.
I'm actively annoyed at it now, though.
Yep, me too.
I assume that's because it's crossing over with the next book, which is Teen Titans Academy issue 3.
Yeah, it's basically just ensured I'm not reading Teen Titans Academy. Because if you're going to cross over with a book that I know I'm not reading, before I've even read the first issue of this book, I'm not putting down my money to try it, to have to maybe drop it 2 or 3 issues in. It's just not a good look.
Yeah. It depends how much of a crossover it is. Like, if it's just, Suicide Squad are appearing and they're calling it a crossover, that's whatever.
I think it's an actual multi-part, because they're both crossing over with each other. And you can see the Teen Titans Academy cover actually has 2 members of Suicide Squad front and center.
Yeah, but I'm playing devil's advocate for in general. Like, the end of Man-Bat issue 1 saying Suicide Squad is going to be here next issue. The Suicide Squad are appearing, but it's not a crossover with another book. It's just
right. I think, and this is kind of just. It's not even just that I dislike the idea of the Suicide Squad book. I'm not interested in it. I think it's just really bad practice to do a crossover in your first few issues. I mean, if you can't even give me a trade's worth, that's already not a good sign. But if you're soliciting issues before I've even read the first one, that's particularly bad.
Yeah, I don't mind it after an arc. Like, I think, back at the start of Rebirth, when they did the Night of the Monsters with Batman, Nightwing, Detective, after they all had their first arc, and then they did that for 2 issues each. Like, I was fine with that. But I mean, it doesn't help that I am not interested in the Suicide Squad book at all. And then Teen Titans Academy, while I want to like it, well, let's just say this week's Future State issue did not fill me with confidence in the matter. So,
Yep. Which means I have more time to read something else. So
that's true. That's true.
If I had any doubts about certain other books, then that's gone now.
Superman Red and Blue issue 3, continuing the black and white style anthology with Superman. Then the Swamp Thing issue 3, Ram V continuing his book.
Multiple Ivies.
I'm excited. Get it, Ram.
What? I feel we're gonna get to the end of this issue, and Matt's gonna be like, I got rammed in the heart. See what I did there?
No, the reason I'm reading Catwoman now is because he's bringing Ivy in, so this is a good sign. I feel there's some respect for Ivy here.
Oh dear.
That's the reason. Not the extremely high quality and everyone raving about it. It's, I guess if you do an Ivy.
That took part, but when Pete was, you were gone because your computer was dead, and he's covering that issue and goes, oh, and then Selena walks in and Ivy's there, and I went, son of a bitch. I'm gonna have to read this now. I can't deny it anymore.
Truth and Justice issue 4 is out, continuing that, and then of course we have Wonder Woman 772 coming out, and again has a backup, which is
cover.
That Middleton cover is phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
stuff storybooks are made out of, right? Like
it looks like it could be the cover for like one of the like Grimm fairy tale or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm not always into Frison's faces. I do think the environment and the everything else in that cover is very pretty, though.
That's because it's Middleton, not Frison.
Yeah.
Fair point. It's always Frison. It's always Frison doing the Wonder Woman covers, alright? It's not my fault. They swapped out.
No. I get it there. At the same time. Man, it's a good cover.
Yeah. So there you go. That is the books. One thing that's maybe worth mentioning if you're a trade reader, is that the first batch of Future State trades are coming out in these solicits.
A lot meatier than I expected.
They're pretty meaty. What's interesting about it, though, and I feel bad for this, is that the Future State Justice League trade, I would say that this has Future State Justice League, which I think is worth reading, and then it has lots of other things that I do not think are worth reading. So it's quite unfortunate if you really want to read Justice League. You're stuck with all this other stuff that isn't that good. Because it's Future State Justice League 1-2, The Flash 1-2, Green Lantern 1-2, and Aquaman 1-2. And those were weirdly interesting at best to outright terrible at worst. So
yeah, I think out of those, Aquaman first issue was the only one we all kind of went, I mean, it's okay.
It's got some ideas. It wasn't really good all in, but it did have some interesting things to at least talk about.
Yeah.
Whereas Green Lantern we just went into it all, and Flash was just...
Yeah, I think the other books so far fare a lot better.
Yeah, obviously next Batman trade comes with... The next Batman 1-4 comes with select stories from Dark Detective 1-4.
What are they leaving out, do you think?
And Future State Nightwing. I assume something from Dark Detective fits better with something else, and that's why it's not here. So it must be one of the...
Because what's in the Dark Detective has the Grifter story and...
Unless it has all the backups from Dark Detective, but the main story from Dark Detective is going with something else because of all the magistrate stuff it's doing. Fits better with something else.
Possible.
Because notably, this is not Future State Batman. This is Future State the next Batman. So it could be that all the Dark Detective stuff is elsewhere.
And I would say so far these are all things that link in with the next Batman. Like Nightwing has that Batman in there, and so I wonder if maybe there's a link in that.
Yeah. Then Future State Superman has Superman of Metropolis, Superman Worlds of War, Imperious Lex, Carousel Superwoman, Legion of Superheroes 1-2, and Superman House of L, which is that one shot that we've not had yet. So yeah, and that's all the ones that have been in so far. But that obviously there is other Future State books that aren't there. That said, though, I do wonder if some of them, like I wonder if the Swamp Thing 2 issue will just go with the first trade of Ram v Swamp Thing, because it'll thematically tie with that, and it doesn't really fit anywhere else to go as a collection.
It's possible, but I think it will probably be in a more random collection, because otherwise I would have expected the backups from the Justice League book to be in with his Justice League Dark trade next.
They may still be there.
I mean, they might.
It's not the first time they've doubled up.
Yeah.
So.
But I mean, like some of these, that Superman one is like 450 pages. That's a very meaty paperback.
Yeah.
I think they've probably done the math and they've realised that selling a thicker book makes them more money and more people buy the full book. Whereas if you sell it as like 3 different trades, a lot of people will buy the first one but won't bother, hardly any will buy 2 and 3. So they'll make more money by selling one thicker trade. Even if technically per page they're making less money, they're actually making more money in general.
It's very possible.
Would be my guess. There's not really anything super interesting in the trades, I don't think. They're doing more Absolute Swamp Thing by Mora.
Yeah, Batman Damned getting a paperback release now.
Yeah. Flash by Mark Waid, book 8, Solicits, so that's, they're still finishing off that run, which is nice. Yeah. So, yeah, that's basically it. There's a second Tales from Dark Multiverse hardcover featuring the weird second wave that we had.
The ones that we opted out of.
Yes, after we read one of them and went, this is not as good as the first time, let's just leave.
This is a particularly weird collection because they felt like maybe it wasn't big enough, even though it's still fairly meaty with just those one-shots. But it's like, plus the stories that inspired these tales. Like, so you got Flashpoint issue 1, Crisis on Infinite Earths issue 12, like just one issue from these stories.
Yeah, which is stupid. Weird. Like, Flashpoint issue 1 on its own is nothing. Like you have to read the whole arc.
Imagine reading Crisis on Infinite Earths 12 and nothing else from that story.
Yeah. Anyway, there you go. That is your solicits for May. Some interesting stuff in there. For the most part, though, I'm still just kind of excited for all this stuff going forward from March onwards. All these new runs / new books / whatever. Looks good. So, there you go. Shall we talk about comic books then? Shall we dive in?
I suppose we should.
All right. Future State Dark Detective issue 3. Mariko Tamaki on the main story with Dan Mora, and then Matthew Rosenberg on the backup with Carmine D. Giandomenico. That is the Grifter story. And this is one that we've generally been quite positive on. It's maybe not hitting quite the amazing highs that Next Batman has in places, or one or two other ones have, but Dan Mora's art, I mean, every shot, every panel of him with the neon city behind him is still pleasing my eye holes. So
just laughing at eye holes.
Oh, I bet you are. I mean, look at that. So the second or third page, it's a silhouette of. I mean, I don't know if it's hinting that that's Catwoman because there's a cat behind her, but the woman standing on her balcony with just all the electric billboards and shit.
It is gorgeous. I don't think it's supposed to be Catwoman. I think it's just textural. But again, Jordie Bellaire doing a great job here. Doing a lot of the heavy lifting. Yeah.
So. Bruce is still working with the old man who's paranoid, and his daughter's mad at Bruce for kind of enabling him a little bit, which kind of leads to where she works, and she's being followed by the magistrate. But it starts with a bit of a murder mystery. There's a wealthy dude who's been murdered in his like fancy penthouse, and basically it's the magistrate murdering the competition. Anyone who has like tech and stuff or weapons tech that could be used by anyone but them. They want to have this monopoly and all the fancy tech in the city. But Bruce tries to catch some of these nanobots with a net from a rooftop. He literally just has a net that he throws out.
Also, I thought fly fishing was something else. So it was like a weird mixed metaphor.
Don't look at me, I have no idea what fly fishing is.
Yeah, so
fly fishing, this is just that's the one where you wade out and stand kind of deep into the river.
Yeah,
right?
And then you whip the lure and stuff like it's a fly.
Yeah.
And the fish jump up and grab it. That's not what he's doing here. This is like an invisible net. So I mean, he's just net fishing. Like commercial fishing.
It doesn't sound good though.
Yeah, I know, but just again, mixed metaphor. I'm gonna chalk it up to Bruce having a ton of head injuries over the years.
I mean, he's capturing flying fish, technically. So
something like that.
Fly fishing. He's fishing for flies.
Flyer fishing is what you're trying to say. Anyways.
Yeah. And there's a bit of trial and error because he basically, the first couple of times he tries to like tamper with one, it just explodes in his face because they're built with firewalls, literally, right. Technically. But then of course it triggers some drones and shit, so we get some cool action of him like jumping around. He actually does randomly land in an alleyway, and behind him is the next Batman. And we kind of expected this to pop up at some point in one of these books.
Still not exactly sure what the timeline is, and I don't care.
I wasn't even gonna try
with the official because nothing is adding up.
Yeah, I'm not worried about the timeline. I'm just sort of going with the flow. So face to face, I think it's interesting that they clearly make Bruce look like he's the shorter of the two. which is cool. But it's kind of a dick measuring moment, but they just sort of back down. And
I do like the split panel of them both walking away.
Yeah, it's nice because it's both over the shoulder, so it's kind of neat. Yeah. But basically Bruce is able to hack into one of these nanobots that he's found, and essentially gets access to the infinite security footage that they've accumulated in the city.
It reminds me of the end of Dark Knight.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
With what Lucius had set up there, Yeah,
do me a favor, Matt, and shut your door, will you?
Oh man.
There's some sort of... Oh, maybe it was outside. Someone was cutting their hedges.
I have no idea. Thankfully, I just listened to music and
it was a hedge trimmer. Was it, Matt? Was it a hedge trimmer?
Yeah, someone's moving into a house by us, and they're doing work outside. So
selfish.
I had to shut the window.
I knew I heard something. Oh. Yep. So yes, all of this just feeds into the paranoia, and the daughter's really mad at him. But he decides to kind of pursue her because she's clearly being followed by these bots and drones and whatnot. And this leads to a building where he's basically ambushed by a bunch of the drones, which is kind of the sort of the ending trap, the cliffhanger that ends on. I have to say, I mean, obviously the art's done a lot of lifting here, but like I did really enjoy his pursuit at the end, like him looking up at the building, which it feels really imposing as he's looking up at it.
Yeah, honestly, I think the art is the biggest thing this has going for it, because I think I was really feeling it this issue. This is 3 of 4 in this story, and the pacing is just not there for me. I still feel like I've barely got a handle on what this story is actually doing as a story beyond just here's some of the stuff in this world.
I think I'm getting that from a lot of features, especially now this month that we're getting a lot of the back halves of the two-parters. I think a lot of them are feeling
some more than others, but some still manage to feel like an actual story while setting up something, whereas this doesn't feel like there's an actual story that it's telling.
No, I feel that the story is like how the magistrate eventually did take over, because they took out the competition of all the... So they got their tech and then took out the tech.
Well, that's not the story though. That's background for this particular 4-issue arc. That's background information. That's not the story.
Well, no, I mean it kind of is a story, and that Bruce is actively investigating it and discovering these things.
It's very much detective in the Dark Detective.
It's very it's very much kind of working as a foundation for all the other Bat stuff revolving around the magistrate. Where it's really setting the scene for everything else.
Yeah, that's where I realized that the magistrate's not a person, it's a group. Also, that really drove it home. Because when it first started, it sounded like the magistrate was one person, kind of like a dictator. But no, it seems like it's a group of people that are making, the decisions, like Peacekeeper 1, because Bruce puts together that's why they came after him. It wasn't necessarily because they knew he was Batman, but because Wayne Tech contributed so much to that tech that they took him out. So they could take over whatever.
All Lucius's Fox, his tech could be a rival to them, so it was kind of a tactic. I think this book's got a lot of atmosphere. It's really sort of painting the world that Gotham is right now, and I think that's benefiting to the other Bat books as well as this one. I kind of agree that there's not really much of a full, complete package, in the sense that I don't really feel like getting into this last issue that there's a story that's about to really pay off, and I'm really, waiting for that final beat. But I do think it's functioning very well as what it's actually doing, though. I like it.
I think I'd be a lot more forgiving of that if this was a 2-issue story. If this was a 2-issue thing, like I say, kind of being this foundational piece for Gotham, I'd be a lot more forgiving. But it's a 4-issue story, and it's a full length, 4-issue story at that. Where I'm like, I feel like I want a bit more out of this. I'm not getting much out of it beyond just I'm seeing things for the rest of the world. But in its own right, I'm not getting much out of it, despite really enjoying the art, and that does keep me engaged enough as I'm reading it.
I think what's funny is that if this was an ongoing, I'd have zero complaints Because
no, I agree with that.
Because I feel like he's done a really good job of setting up this old man and his daughter. There's a supporting cast. It feels almost like a weird, maybe not a miniseries, but like a season in the Batman world where this is what Bruce is doing now, where he's having to be really low tech. He's having to hide in some basement.
If this was the first arc of a book, I would have very little complaints on this regard specifically. I'd be like, okay, it's taking its time, it's building to stuff, but the fact that, okay, this is a 4-issue mini, the context of that, I'm judging it on that behalf. And, that's where I feel the pacing is lacking. And I'm like, in my head, I'm going, well, I'm sure it's going to get a sequel story now somewhere in one of these other books.
That's what I'm thinking.
That's still kind of not good enough for me. Like, that's fine. We'll get that when it gets that. But if you're selling me a 4-issue series, I still need something out of that 4-issue series without going, oh, but you've got to come back for the next story somewhere else to get anything out of this. That's kind of where I feel right now.
I don't know. I just like the ride that we're on with it because it does feel different from the next Batman, right? Like they're telling 2 different stories in Gotham, so it doesn't seem like Bruce cares who this new Batman was, right? Like he was just kind of like, "You're in my way."
No, I really like that moment. Where he's like, well, the Batman can't die. Of course, there's a new one. The Batman is dead. Long live the Batman.
Right.
Yeah, it's more than just a man. It's the legend. It's the myth. It's all that.
The symbol,
right.
I think he uses as well.
Yeah.
It's that classic Batman stuff.
So I like that aspect of it.
Yeah, to sort of expand this out, I think not just even just for the state of Gotham. I think the future state in general. It feels like they clearly do have plans where future state whatever future state is overall isn't just this 2-month thing. There's clearly some kind of plan to come back to this, and I don't necessarily know if it'll be like a future state era where we'll have another month, and maybe this time next year they'll do another month or 2 where everything stops and we get like almost like a concluding chapter that'll end the ongoing anthology book, and we'll get like the ending of whatever the future state status quo is, and because whatever. But
I have to say, I hope it's not another month of interrupting books. Like, I'm fine with having regular ongoing books or minis alongside everything else. If they just want that to be its own, little pocket ongoing, that's cool.
I don't disagree with that. I don't necessarily I don't want to stop all the books again either. I would rather they didn't do that, but I wouldn't be surprised if they did. I guess, yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. So yeah, no, it's very cool. The art is beautiful. And I do think the overall feeling of the book. So it's neat. And I actually kind of like the daughter chewing him out for enabling the old man.
Yeah,
like, really.
Well, because it's very much Bruce taking advantage of a situation like he always does, right? Like something that Alfred would have chewed him out for too. You would think. It's like, no, this man has issues, and you're just feeding into them to get what you want. So. Yeah.
Yeah, and he makes like goggles that can see the nanobots, which is
and the old guy can somehow hear them.
Yeah,
he's not just paranoid.
No. Yeah.
The alien sounds are the drones that are pervasive in the city.
He's not completely sane because he thinks they're aliens. But,
right.
Yeah.
Right.
He's making a leap as to what they are, but there is actually something there that he is hearing. It's not like he's just inventing everything.
It's not complete nonsense. So that was the main story in Dark Detective issue 3. So, Matt, what are you rating that story?
I'm gonna give this one a 7.5.
Cara?
I'll give it a 6.
Art's enough. I think I'm gonna give it the 8. I think the art's enough for me to just give it that extra little bump. So, there you go. The other story, of course, is the Matthew Rosenberg story. This is the Grifter, where he just ran into Huntress, who's got a bit of a rep. The magistrate really want her, which is where this issue kind of goes, because she does have a way out of the city. Luke Fox pays to get his way out, and she ultimately takes them to this ultra fancy, like undetectable, like submarine or whatever it is that's going to take him out of the city. But there's a bit of a twist where Luke turns out that he is working for the magistrate, and this was all just a big plot to get to Huntress because they really want her. So ultimately, Grifter, who does get a chance to leave, but it's basically leaving Huntress for dead. He makes his heroic sort of sacrificial choice moment where he decides to go and help her instead and get her out of the city, and he'll take the beating, he'll stay and fight, and give her a chance to still sort of like, you know, do a resistance but from a distance, or regroup and come back, or whatever it may be.
Resistance from a distance.
Resistance from a distance.
Yeah. The story had me until the Luke Fox thing, just because, again, with the timeline, and this does not feel like the same Luke. Like, I know it felt like he was under duress, like he was doing it for whatever reason, but just, I don't know. It came like a twist for the sake of having a twist.
No, I agree, because it feels like the Luke that we know is a stronger moral character than that. And
and just
kind of bend and make this choice.
I think I kind of agree. It came suddenly for me as well. What I will defend a little bit is that I do think him trying to actually let Grifter go, that no, I imagine don't care much about you. He does kind of go out of his way to try and give him an option to leave. So there is some sort of moral compass still there, even if he is kind of being a dick elsewhere.
Right, but it felt like when we were trying to get Huntress, you're collateral, and because you helped out my dad way back in the day, I'm going to let you go. And versus hey, they have my family, I tried to trip them up. You know what I mean? Like, there's a different way to do it, you know, for it to be like, Luke Fox. It was weird.
It never felt like it was under duress at all. Like, Luke said, it's a job. It's nothing personal. And he goes, we got the Queen of Clubs. That's all anyone cares about. It feels like he's in on this. Like
which seems different than the Luke that we've been dealing with in the next Batman, where it seems like there's still that Luke that we know of, but he's just keeping his head down. Here it feels like he's completely sold out.
Right, and it's just bizarre because obviously, having Jason Todd working for Magistrate, I buy that 100%.
Right.
But this Luke who spent time as Batwing and such, doesn't feel like the same character anymore. It feels like it's out of nowhere.
Or tie whatever happened to his sister to Huntress and be like, I want to get her, and that would seed that a little bit. Something, there's just.
I think that's kind of the point. Is this is supposed to tell us how far gone he is, and this is obviously further on the timeline than what we've seen of the next Batman.
Maybe it felt hollow. That's all.
I don't disagree with that, but I think that's the logic behind it, and I think this is supposed to tell us how far gone he is, and that maybe they should have done a better job of actually kind of at least giving us a hint to why he is this far gone now.
I have a question, Pete. If you were only reading Dark Detective and you weren't reading the next Batman, and so you don't have context for Luke anywhere else in Future State, would you be defending this at all? Like, would you be going, there's reasons? It just in this book.
I don't know, because I don't think you think I'm defending it for the reasons you think I'm defending, and I'm not even defending it that much because I actually agree that it comes out of nowhere.
Okay, defending that logic of there's the stuff that that we've seen elsewhere, and this has shown where he's gotten to. I think if you haven't read those other things, this is even worse out of nowhere.
I mean, I guess that's somewhat true, but I don't think that's any more or less true in the context of Future State than it is to any other time there's a ongoing crossover style thing happening, where if you're not reading the two separate books that happen to relate to a character, you'll be equally lost.
Right, but usually if a book is following a character, in this case, Luke, usually if there are big character twists and turns, you've got at least some context for that within that book's story. Otherwise I'd say it's just bad writing.
Very possibly. I mean, if they're treating him like a character who's like darting around different books and you get kind of a full picture. Not that I necessarily expect them to have another Luke Fox pop up somewhere else by the end of the month that kind of adds more to why he is this way. At least if they do, I'd at least understand the sort of the logic of, okay, we see part of the journey in one book, the end of the journey in this book, and then kind of the middle of the journey elsewhere. And it's kind of a through line. If you've been paying attention to a lot of Future State, you're rewarded for seeing all the different corners, and it kind of builds something out of that. Like, I could see the appeal of that and why they do that.
And I don't even want to just put it strictly on Rosenberg. I feel like there's this is one where editing would have helped a little bit. Sometimes they talk about editing having their hands a little bit too much and stuff, but I just feel like a little bit of oversight here would clear up a lot.
I think it's possible that the editors are a little bit too in the weeds themselves, where they know all the beats from the other books, and they're not seeing the problem from a detached point of view, because the information is just there in their head.
It didn't. I guess I'm just impressed enough that I like the voice of the character, and I was the same was the first half, and I like the choice he makes at the end to go back and help Huntress. That it kind of was successful because it actually made me give at least a bit of a shit about Grifter. Because I don't disagree. The Luke Fox twist does feel a bit out of nowhere. It feels a bit, I don't know if I say shock value per se, but because it's also not that shocking necessarily either.
No.
I'm kind of indifferent.
No, it's like a twist for the sake of having a twist.
It's a bit easy, isn't it? It's a bit cheap.
Yeah.
No. But he's not the main character. Grifter is, and I actually think it did a decent enough job of making me like Grifter a little bit. Where I'm not saying that I care about Grifter enough that I would pick up any Grifter story now, but Rosenberg's doing more of a Grifter. I'd be like, oh yeah, that's the continuation. I see what he's going to do with him, because I actually kind of like the Star-Lord-y kind of feel that he has for him. So I'd describe him.
I will say it's the most I've liked Grifter, just based off of, because I always felt like they've been trying to wedge him in ever since New 52 because of Wildstorm.
Yeah.
And he's never had a reason to stand out. So here, like Pete said, there's a little Star-Lord-y anti-hero, like, put upon. Like, I don't want to be the hero.
Hawkeye.
Yeah, like, I don't want to be the hero, but y'all are making me do it. So, and then when he got those like plasma guns, it definitely felt like, Wildcats era. I remember seeing in comic shops in the 90s. Like,
yeah.
All right, this is the familiar character now.
Yeah. I don't think there's any debate that the Luke Fox element of this is the weakest part of it.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any debate in that, but I think everything else is actually surprisingly fun. And I'm like, hey. When I went to this book, I actually thought, oh, I'm actually kind of looking forward to the second half of that Grifter story, which I don't think I was expecting to ever think. So
strange sentence to hear you say.
Yeah. So again, I don't think I care about Grifter in general now, but I'm definitely down to try more of Williams or Rosenberg's Grifter.
You're more open to Grifter than you were before.
Well, it clearly depends on the voice. It depends on these things, but I think I like the Huntress inclusion as well. I like that she got a little bit of time here to shine and feel a little bit important. So that's nice. Obviously, Giandomenico's art's very good, especially in the action, all the car chasing stuff that goes on.
The action's all spectacular throughout.
Yeah, issue looks good.
It's Giandomenico. Like, that's what we expect, right? Is the movement of action and stuff.
Yeah.
And delivers here.
Real sense of momentum in the chase when they're on the bike. Yeah,
because his general extended around faces are okay, but it's the momentum and the action where he really shines. No question about that. What are you giving this story, Matt?
I'm gonna give this one we'll go a 7.
Connor?
It's another 6 from me, I think.
Yeah, I would agree with Matt. I think 7 is quite fair for this. It has problems, obviously, but I liked it. I was surprised how much I enjoyed the two-part. The book as a whole, Matt, what are you going with?
I'll just give it a 7. Straight 7 across.
Connor?
Very easy for me. I gave both stories the same score, so it's a 6.
Well, I had a 7 and 8, so I'll split the difference and call it a 7.5. But there you go. It's
math.
Dark Detective, issue 3, which will take us on. Future State. I'll take that again, shall I, since Connor hiccuped at the start of the sentence. Just for when it's caught up for YouTube, it's not starting with a hiccup.
Well, I'm very sorry. I tried to hold it in.
CR21 invading the show yet again.
He's gonna go. You didn't try hard enough.
Look, I suffer with the extra pain of holding them in instead of just letting them come out, and I'll try and mitigate the damage. But no, that's fine. They'll be grateful.
Matt saying try hard there. I mean, just reminded me that I just discovered that there's a character in Death Stranding called Die Hardman. Die Hardman is the character's name.
Oh man,
I thought that was funny. Future State Justice League issue 2. Josh Williamson writing with Marcio Takara on the first story. Ram V with Robson Rocha on the second. Or if I mixed the artist stuff, I may have swapped
all the way
artists.
around.
Yeah, I swapped the artists around. But that's the people. That's the people's. So yeah, so we have the I've forgotten their names. The group. Hyperclan, thank you. The Hyperclan have infiltrated and are pretending to be the Justice League, and this is the story of the real Justice League. And the real Justice League, I mean, John's team with Yara Flor and Joe and all the rest of them. Basically learn their lesson that they should know who each other are, and that the reason why this was able to even happen is because they don't know each other well enough. At least not all of them. Clearly, part of this, and we kind of talked about this in the first issue, that clearly pairs of them do kind of know each other a bit more than the letting on. And that kind of becomes a focus here where they kind of reveal, hey, I know you're really you because you usually do this. And I know you're usually really you because you would never say that. And they have this moment where they sort of go around in a circle. And because they're in the Earth hell, the full of fire that the Justice League put the Hyperclan in, because they're white Martians, and this was going to be a place that would keep them in prison forever. Their Flash
kind of brutal coming from the Justice League. Knowing what we know about Martian physiology,
it's a bit harsh. Yeah.
So
was John on the team at this point? Because that seems particularly cruel if he was.
No, because Andy mentions remembering her parents talking about this. So this is clearly something that's happened later to us. It's not something that's happened so far.
In the upcoming Bendis run, is what you're saying?
Possibly. It may be.
In between.
Yeah. It may be in the Bendis run. But the idea that she remembered her parents talking about the Hyperclan and how
because
bad
there
was.
It kind of reminded me of Identity Crisis a little bit. That it seemed like there might have been a split amongst the Justice League, the way that Andy puts it. Like, I remember my parents talking about it didn't go over well with everybody.
She says that Aquaman thought it was too cruel.
Yeah. So,
which honestly, if there's anything to suggest that this might be an arc in Bendis' Justice League, it's maybe that conversation.
Yeah, maybe.
Because there's drama to be had from it. So
yeah, the stuff that I like from their interpersonal things were just these little tiny and that's why I really love Williamson, like the John pointing out that the Batman hums his own music.
He has some action music.
And then what was the other one on there? Having a hard time. I've read too many comic books this week. Or towards the end where Andy's like, only one person calls me princess.
Yeah. Well, the one I really liked is so their Flash basically runs them out of this place with Speed Force. Bro, don't have to explain shit. But they're fighting the Hyperclan, and they're all sort of duplicating the Justice League. So it becomes this: okay, we have to figure out if we're fighting our real friend or we're fighting the duplicate, the Hyperclan member who's pretending to be one of the other Justice League members. And my favorite part of this is when Joe makes two of them say, "Hey, did I tell you
tell me who my first relationship in the Enduring City was?"
Yes, and they basically say, "Oh yeah, we remember that," and it's one of those long names from her book that we always joked about. So of course, who could forget a name like that? And Joe's like, "Yeah, I never talked about this. The only way you could know that is if you read my mind. Therefore, you're white Martians." Blast.
Boom. Got him.
And I thought it was really interesting that her construct that she fights them with is the Flash and Batman that we're familiar with.
Yeah. Which that was the other thing I liked is they talked about that Joe only uses certain constructs depending on her mood. Which
they get more elaborate as she gets
cocky.
Whatever it was. Or is it cocky?
Right. And so we know from how her ring works, right? That the ring's kind of fueled by her versus the central power battery. So I like that little layer there that Williamson kind of threw in. That was the other one. And
then the other thing to do with the Hyperclan is that the leader is very determined to just, revenge, whereas the others are kind of like, we're kind of getting used to just pretending to be the Justice League. We could just be happy here.
Fun. Yeah. Do this. People like us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're worshipping us like we're gods. We could just keep doing this. But of course, supervillain gonna supervillain. Eventually, Batman shows up and flamethrowers the leader to stop him from enacting his plan, and they agree to all go to dinner together and actually get to know. And the end of the book is them saying, okay, who should we invite to join the Justice League? And we get a page of a bunch of potentials. I think that's Tim Drake there. You got Guardian and Mr. Miracle, Miss Martian, Lobo's daughter or whatever she is. That was the one that made me go, oh, please not her. It's fine.
Who's that at the back? Don't know.
I actually is that maybe the Wonder Girl? Wonder Woman?
Oh, Nubia.
Maybe
it's
hard to tell. It's because it's only unless it's like a grown up Naomi or something like that with different hair. But
that's maybe because that's who I thought it was.
Because
it's hard to tell. It's just a face.
It's just a face, yeah. So we're going basically on it's a black woman with long hair. But
yeah, I think I appreciate this story. You know, it felt like it's an actual 2-parter with an ending. We wrapped up the hyperclan thing. It had an arc of them learning that they need to trust each other a bit. But then it has this epilogue that clearly sets up, okay, there's going to be more of this somewhere. I don't know. I mean, Williamson mentioned he's got books haven't been announced that are later in the year. Yeah. Maybe this is part of that. If he's doing the follow-up, makes sense.
I can see it not continuing as well, bizarrely. I think this actually kind of works. It's just a nice, like, this just like will expand, and here's some of the characters growing up that might be the expansion. I can see it working as just a thing.
Or if he never gets to write Justice League again, he gets to write a Roundtable, right?
Yeah.
Like
if we weren't getting other Future State books continuing announcements over the last month or so, I would probably not have leapt to this. But given that we are, and we know that they're quite happy to
just
do some
just the fact too that they've made a big idea or a big deal about this new Flash not being from this Earth. Right?
That's true. That's a mystery that's still to be unraveled. You're right.
Yeah, so it almost makes me wonder if there's more just there. And because the Flash and time travel, you could do a story in the future where he'd get to touch on it versus just a whole series.
I could see that. Yeah, I mean, obviously, like, there's a lot of potential for a lot of these books to continue. This is the one that had an ending, though, that felt like this could just be like a 2-part that never comes back to.
Yeah.
This could totally just be the last thing that's a little hopeful kind of, continuation thing. Rocha's art, mostly
perfectly
pretty
solid.
Yeah, nifty.
I really like that last page. Yeah, I was gonna say there's some wonky stuff and the action's good, but like that last page where they're all sitting together at the table, like eating. Almost it's kind of the Avengers movie ending, right? With the shawarma. Weirdly, I feel like that's the big page in all of this, and they're just sitting there, and I think that's the best work.
But I remembered the other moment I really liked is that when they're starting to like bond a little bit in the middle of the fight, or before they come back, and one of them reveals their name. I don't know if it was Joe, but I'm Joe and you are. And Batman just goes, too soon. It's like, I'm not doing it. Not ready for this. But he does have his cowl down at the end of the book, so clearly he has gotten to that point where he's
and
open.
and she calls him Jace.
Yeah.
Which, again, it's going to be really interesting to see this transition, because obviously there's still some books and Solicits calling him Tim. And we have, other books like this calling him Jace. So I don't know where in the timeline that transition takes place.
Well, there's that, and on the fact that the solicit for the digital first book says that he's older than Luke, which I didn't realize. Because they called Luke his younger brother. So there's a whole bunch of mystery to this guy.
Yeah, so he has to be quite old here then, compared to the others, because, Andy's just a baby in present day, and he's actually functioning as Batman at the same time as an older Bruce, and, because we saw them interact. So.
Right. I mean, if we say Andy is in, her early 20s at this point.
Yeah.
So give it add 20 years from now. And
we don't know how old.
Luke's got to be mid-20s
at best. And if he's older...
He's got to be in his late 40s at least.
He's like an almost 50-year-old
right,
Batman hanging out with these kids.
Is that actually so different from Bruce a lot of the time? When you sit and think about it, it's like he's got to be in his like late 40s at least.
I guess it's just because all the other characters do feel like they would be really young. I mean, I suppose technically even John compared to Andy is a good 15 years older. I mean, that's something we don't really think about, but now I'm thinking about it. John, if she's like 22, he'll be like 37 or something like that.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, what age? Obviously he got aged up. When he came back. Roughly.
I don't know the exact age, but I'm going to say 16. Say, I don't know.
Yeah.
16. Okay. Yeah. So he's got to be mid 30s, early 40s.
I'm sorry for bringing that up. I don't like thinking about all the timey-wimey.
Yeah. And I was sitting picking apart going, these characters look young.
Yeah, maybe some of them are a bit younger. Which is funny because I don't think that Yara comes across as being like close to 40 like John's supposed to be. If we think about
it, Amazons are timeless. Like Diana could be 800 years old for all we know, and she looks like she's in her
I mean, that's fair.
early 30s. You know what I mean? So same could go for Yara.
Well, the fact is,
not much. And then
with Joe, I would have said, I mean, for all we know, her story took place in the future anyway. Until, of course, we mentioned earlier in the Solicits that she's popping up in present-day Green Lantern books. So,
but even then, her origin is tied to very much present-day themes. So, how far into the future could she be? You know.
So I guess what I'm saying is that a lot of these characters should be 40 or 50, and they're still in their mid-20s, but whatever.
Yeah. So just don't think about it. That's what I do.
Yeah.
It's good advice.
There you go. So that's the main story. Matt, what are you giving Justice League?
I'm gonna give this one an 8.
Connor?
I'll give it a 7. I think it's perfectly good.
7.5. I'll split the difference. And then, of course, the second story, the backup story, is the Justice League Dark story with Ram V and Marcio Takara. I have to confess, I looked at the first page of this and went, nah, I'm not feeling it.
I was about to ask if you read it, because I was like, I'm not sure if you would.
Because I wasn't super into the first part last month, and then I looked at the first page or two of this, and I just went, you know what, I'm good. So you two, take it away.
Yeah, I did not realize that this was going to turn into such an Etrigan story at its core.
Yeah. Well, and then looking at the Solicits too, not to do this too many times in this one book, but it seems like this is his team that Ram's going to go with.
I intentionally didn't read Solicit because I'm still upset.
Okay. Well,
that book.
Gotcha. Anyways, this seems to be the team. You got Ragman, you got Etrigan, you got Detective Chimp, Zatanna, and then Dr. Fate. It seems. So, I don't think so. They weren't listed, but so this is who it seems like he's going to be using. So this feels much like some of the other books, where it feels like he's kind of doing a preview of what the themes are going to be. But here we get kicked off with Fate, because as we came in the last issue, he was disguised as a homeless person to get away from Merlin, and that Merlin destroyed the Tower of Fate, which kind of left Naboo in shambles. So, what's his character's name? Who's the new Fate, Connor?
Khalid.
Khalid. Yeah, there we go. So Khalid ends up finding another patron because he couldn't find Naboo, who's the Egyptian goddess Hawet. Hawet? I don't know how to...
Hawet? Yeah, I'm not sure entirely either.
Yeah. So just basically, I looked, of course, at this god, and it's kind of the personification of belief, which...
That's a really interesting one, actually.
Yeah, so when she appears, she, becomes the new Naboo, basically, who, powers Dr. Fate and gives him, gives Khalid these visions of the future. And that's what led to him going into hiding, because it was very important that he doesn't, that Merlin doesn't get his hands on the helm.
Pretty much. They're like, no, that would be catastrophically bad.
Right. And, Khalid comes out and tells Etrigan basically that, like, hey, I know that Merlin sidelined you by telling you, that he killed Jason Blood. So, like, he followed through on that. So you have to push through and go on, and we have to defeat Merlin.
Yeah.
And then the main part of the issue with Etrigan becomes him and Detective Chimp kind of arguing, about what he has to do.
Really interesting from Etrigan's point of view, as a character study, that Etrigan has a conscience now and has become a better person, and he thinks he's scared as to whether or not he's actually a better person, or if it's just Jason Blood's conscience to say essentially has affected him a little bit.
Yeah, but and that's where Detective Chimp kind of tells us, like, well, no, you guys are bonded together forever. He was gonna rub off on you. You're gonna rub off on him. Yeah, that's just the part, and it also goes towards that belief, right? Of that almost kind of breaks down into religion too, to where if you're a good person because you think there's a reward, you're still being a good person, right? Like,
yeah,
it's all about that belief. And
it is. It's really interesting because this version of Etrigan we're doing here reminds me a lot of Amos in The Expanse. Mm-hmm. Just trying to get Pete's attention again.
Sure.
Yeah, Amos. Yes, Expanse. Yes.
No. But
trying to.
in the
Does he rhyme too?
No, he doesn't speak enough to rhyme.
No.
But no, Amos. The whole thing is he was kind of a terrible, shitty person, and didn't really have any concept of morality, and relied on Holden then to kind of tell him what was right and wrong. And over time, he started to learn, like, oh, what would he do? And Etrigan's kind of like that with Jason Blood, it seems, where it's like, all right, well, what would Jason do in this scenario? Would he make what would the right call be? And it's really interesting, Etrigan having these moral debates with himself, as opposed to just burning everything.
Yeah, and so and then the rest of the action kind of is in between their discussion is
like Zatanna riding a ragman dragon.
Yes, and Fate squaring off with the Enchantress, who is the knight in the armor that we've been seeing in the last issue, and Constantine ends up talking with her about and with Zatanna about Wonder Woman, which I think is a nice tie to the previous Justice League Dark, and again, about how Wonder Woman basically had the power to be whatever she wanted, yet she chose still just to be herself. Because there's a line where he goes, "Who she could have been many things, a warrior, a god, a witch, a queen, but she chose to be herself. And if she were here, she'd say, and then basically the summation of this fight, which leads Merlin to them, and they're on the ropes before Etrigan shows up, and come to find out that Jason Blood isn't dead,
and he has an angel sword.
Yeah, probably from Zuriel, right?
I'm assuming so. Yeah.
Yeah, and runs Etrigan through,
Yeah, and this is the bit where Fate steps in, where because Jason is going to just execute
murder
him.
Etrigan.
He's got him down. He's about to take the head off, and Fate steps in and blocks it. And it's here where Khalid has a word with Etrigan that I think is where this is going to tie into the run going forward, because Etrigan's pretty pissed because he's like, hey, you told me that Jason was dead, but clearly he's not. And Khalid kind of leans in and says, tells him, remember, past actions may yet be influenced by the future that you've seen. So there's this idea that going forward, is Etrigan going to remember these events and try and change the outcome? Because that's really interesting as to how this is actually important to the run, rather than just being a two-issue thing.
And I should say, I did some as you were talking to more about that goddess, the Egyptian goddess. It's also the god, and it's kind of the Egyptian representation of the infinite and eternity, right? So you couple that with the belief, and I think you're onto something. Where now Etrigan being kind of this almost interdimensional being, right? He's not bound to exact timelines. Yeah, being a demon. So
it's interesting. I thought it was kind of funny. They had a Khalid, Dr. Fate, obviously, spinning the Doctor Strange line from Infinity War. He's like, I've seen all these futures. I've lived all of them. There's only one future which we win, and this is not one of them.
Right.
It was kind of an interesting statement.
Yeah, definitely. You could tell Ram V was having some fun with that.
It was very intentional.
Yeah, and so basically he offers himself up to Merlin, which he was told you can't do. But with that seed now planted into Etrigan,
he's banking on Etrigan making sure this future never comes to pass in the first place.
Right, and so he goes off with them and leaves the Justice League Dark, and that where there's magic, there's always hope.
And I'm really glad you told me what this this new goddess is, being belief, because the idea that he's putting this belief into Etrigan of like, no, I believe you're going to avert this future. Right. is a really interesting angle to take.
It is. Yeah. Randy is very good at what he does thus far.
Isn't he?
Yeah. So but yeah, so art's pretty decent. It's dark in some parts, and I mean that like heavy
really
inks.
Heavy inks, yeah.
And and it plays with that this is very fantastical. I mean, you got Enchantress in this, not really Lord of the Rings armor, but it did remind me of Sauron from what we've seen.
I get where you come from. It's the shoulder plates.
Yeah. So you know, if the last one was kind of a little bit more horror with what was going on and them looking for fate and whatnot, this definitely leaned more into the fantasy, which I think is a nice balance for, you know, for this book. And so the art here really leans into that. You know, you have an angel sword running a demon through.
Yeah,
you know,
it's a lot of variety. You got that first page with Khalid like in Egypt, looking out, you know, like doing the the adventurer pose.
Yep.
And then you know you've got Zatanna riding a goddamn dragon.
Yeah, wrapped in the Ragman wraps. You know what I mean? Like it's pretty
great.
Cool. So, but yeah, so you rate it. You go first. I want to see where you're at.
Okay, fine. I'm at an 8.5. Oh, this is a blast.
All right. I was too. I hate lining up with Connor, but
I'm really sad that I'm not going to be reading Justice League Dark for a while.
I mean, you can. I mean,
I'll read it in trades, but I'm not paying. Was it $5 for 10 pages of story?
But how do you know it's 10 pages? You didn't read the solicit. It could be each half.
No, Ramvi tweeted about it. It's 10 pages.
Oh, damn it! I thought I had you.
It's 10-page backup every month. I'm not paying $5 for a 10-page.
Don't worry, Matt. I've got a feeling that a patron might
someone's
step
gonna
in.
make him.
Yeah.
Well, if someone wants to make me read it, I'll gratefully read the backup.
I'll do it.
Oh, trust me. Trust me, they're not going to pay you to read the backup. They're paying you to read the main story. Whether you want to also read the backups, up to you.
Yeah, I was just saying, what if they tell them that...
At that point, I will then read the backup, obviously.
Yes. Yeah.
I'll do that of my own free will.
It's almost like a backhanded favor in a weird way.
Yeah, in a way.
All right. Future State, Superman, Wonder Woman, issue 2. Dan Waters writing with Leila Del.
You gotta read the whole issue.
Sorry.
Pete doesn't read half a book and he just slacks off.
Yeah.
Read the whole issue. I'll read the whole issue.
Yeah. I'm gonna give this an 8.5. I'm gonna go a little bit high just because it's thoroughly enjoyable.
Connor?
I'm gonna go with the 8 overall. I think the first half drags it down a little bit, obviously, but I do really like that back half.
Well, I only read the first half, so my rating stands. 7.5. So, Future State, Superman, Wonder Woman, issue 2. Dan Waters writing with Leila Del Duca on the art. This is, of course, Superman. John, that is, has made this pact with the sun, Solaris, to have a fight. Meanwhile, we find out Wonder Woman has agreed to race the sun god.
Yeah, and this picks up pretty much right after the end of the last issue where John was falling out of the sky.
Yeah. He wakes up in the fortress and she's like, yeah, you were sort of conscious enough to let me bring you back to here, but
some really effective coloring right from the start. Like, there's this blue and the panels of the fortress, and then all the red of the alarm going off and on. It's really effective.
Yeah, but the basic gist of the issue is that they effectively swap places, and Superman has the race with the moon god's horsey.
Headless mule.
There you go. That's horsey. And basically, the idea being that if Wonder Woman defeats Solaris, then there'll be no more Red Sun, and it'll give Superman his strength back, and he'll be able to finish the race without the horse. Even he just,
right,
because he's losing.
Superman.
He's being lapped because they're doing laps around like Pluto and back. That's
Pluto,
the lap.
Yeah, because the sun wanted just to do it around Earth and the moon, and John's like, how
that's
about we
gonna cause a lot of trouble.
Yeah. Basically to give her enough time to do what she needs to do.
Yes. And of course she does succeed, as you'd expect, by basically heating Solaris up so much that it kind of goes into that blue star phase where she explains that it was I wouldn't say technobabbly, but it was
all dying sun color.
Yes.
Right.
So therefore no longer red, and therefore no longer making John weak.
Problematic.
Simple stuff. Kind of epic in scale, but simple stuff. So John then wins the race because he just zooms past him at that point.
Punches him anyway.
Yeah.
Yes. The big thing though is that John never takes a day off, and one of the things that he has to do every day at about 10:30 is he has to fire like like this blast into a black hole to save a planet that's near it, because otherwise it will consume the planet. But
right.
But they have to also be in orbit, so it has to be the same time every day, and it has to sort of keep the same sort of pull. It has to do it every day. So a lot of his story for this issue is that he effectively has to trust Yara to do it at the end so that he can have a day off, which she does. She's got this big, cannon thing. So in fact, probably some of my favorite art of the book is when we see that black hole pop up.
It's so good, whatever that effect is that they're doing with it. It's such a unique thing with the curvature of the color.
Yes. Obviously, the 2-page spread where Superman punches the sun god, and then we just see the human version of him flying back through space in a full-page spread afterwards. Very probably the big dramatic, artistic moments of the book.
I love the way the sound effects are on both of those pages and the way they're really effectively used.
You got the boom,
the big boom in the fire, and then the falling effect that he is behind him.
Yeah,
it's nice.
I don't even know what that's saying. It ends with an M, whatever it is.
Yeah, I
is this
don't
boom
know
again?
Exactly. I think it is just the boom. Yeah,
it's just boom again. Yeah, because you sort of see an outline of it rather than the full letters. But it's a really enjoyable issue. That's enjoyable for the characters and their interactions and how they think. And it ends with saying "Good morning, Earth" again, kind of like at the start of the first issue. Although the first issue was just "Good morning, Metropolis." But if I have any sort of critiques, is that it's so out there and this ridiculous big ideas that it's playing with that I almost wish it had a bit more time to really, because there's so much exposition explaining what the race is going to be and how she's going to destroy the Solaris, that I'm like, that's could have been a bit more digestible. I feel like I get bombarded that I didn't really take some of it in, and I'm just kind of vaguely going, she turned it into another color, it's fine. That's it.
No, but I do like how they swapped roles, whereas he's handling the mythological, right? She's handling the more science aspect of it, and they both play to their, they're playing to the strengths by going against their norm, which I really like. That's I always like the Superman team up stories that allow them to do that.
Is this the first?
This feels like a very traditional, almost like a Batman Superman story.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I mean, this is called the planet's finest instead of the world's finest, which I think is a pretty good summation.
That's a nice touch. Is this the first time I've heard John reference the fact that he's an atheist? Because he says he doesn't believe in gods at one point in this issue. And it stuck out to me because Superman typically, doesn't say that.
No, but, with all of their stuff, it's kind of, I use it as, it's the Thor corollary, right? That in the MCU, you have to say, yeah, Thor is the god of thunder and Loki's the god of mischief. However, they're kind of like Superman in that they're almost above humans, but there's still immortality to them. Yeah, because you've got to have a way that you can defeat Loki, right, or keep Thor sidelined somehow.
I'm not really talking about that. I'm not talking about how it fits with the DC character. I'm just talking about the idea that Superman isn't usually presented as an atheist, but here there's a line of dialogue where John kind of sounds like an atheist.
Well, to me, it was kind of like, I kind of know what the difference is because they're usually just super beings. They're like a different plane of existence, not necessarily gods.
Read it differently. I mean, more agnostically is how I would say I read it, in that he doesn't believe in gods, and I think that is why I think Matt was kind of on the ball here with the Thor comparison. He doesn't believe that they're actually gods, but that doesn't mean that he doesn't believe in a god above all of that, but he doesn't believe these beings are gods.
In DC, they call it the one above all, right?
Yeah.
Kind of but no, I get what Pete's saying though, because Clark, in and of himself, is still a farm boy from Kansas, right? There's still something to it. It's I'm Kryptonian, but maybe there's something more. Whereas John's almost that, it's whatever. I could see Clark going to church every Sunday still.
Yeah.
John definitely does not.
That's kind of what I'm getting at, is that it's different from Superman. That's kind of my point, is that this is different because I don't think Clark would typically say something like this, but John, I mean, I can see Connor's read on it and just being that he doesn't believe in multiple. It's kind of like how in Avengers Captain America says,
there's one God. Yeah. It doesn't look just like that. Yeah.
And I thought it was an interesting line. It stuck out to me because it felt like something that I don't think that typically you'd write Superman to say something like that, but I think it's interesting that they're separating John and saying no, he would say this.
Still Lois's son. Don't forget that.
Right, and that's kind of what I do
analytical.
Think this issue and the first issue of this, out of all the future state stuff, has established John's character more than any others. I mean, the John of the future is what I mean by that. In that, I get a read that no, he is trying too hard. He is a bit of a workaholic, but he also backs everything up with evidence and likes scientific answers to a lot of things. He likes to be able to understand it, which I didn't exactly get anything like that in Justice League, for example, which maybe isn't fair. But I got less. I didn't get that much either in the first issue of Superman and Metropolis.
No, this definitely feels like a John that I'm familiar with, but also like a step forward.
It feels like an older version.
He is different than his dad. Which is important because you look at Batman and all of his different kid figures, and Dick's kind of the same that way, where he took what Bruce had done and just did it differently. And that's how he stands out.
It's an interesting topic to bring up because I don't like Superman and characters like that. Like it almost doesn't make any sense for them to believe in a god. But the weird thing is because you're in the DC universe and we have things that are like monitors and Perpetua, and we have these types of characters which are essentially gods, just in a different way.
I mean, I think I disagree with that fundamental statement that it doesn't make any sense for them to believe in God.
Well, but that's why it's belief, though, right? Now we're getting into philosophical stuff. Is like that's
right.
That's what makes it
one of the core arguments from Christianity, at least, is the uncaused cause, and it's how it can fit with anything scientific, right? You can still accept the Big Bang and be deeply religious because it's fine. God caused the Big Bang. Anything that you can trace back to a point where you can't go any further, and you just say, right, and that was God.
I'm sorry I brought this up.
Yeah, but no, I get what you're saying, though, Pete, too, because it is like, and the fact that he's saying it to someone that's so entrenched in mythology, right? Like, she talks with gods. In her story, who knows if it happened before or after this, she went to the underworld and talked with Hades. So, like, for him to say that, it shows the contrast between the two on that level, but also, like, he's known Wonder Woman his whole life, right? And knows what she runs with. So for him to say that, it's almost like kind of like a sly, like,
It does in some ways feel like he's putting them down, going, it's almost a bit of a shitty attitude in that he is putting them down, going, I don't believe that what you think is, your whole life, like I say, he's known Diana, his whole life. It's like all that stuff that you do that you fight, it's not really gods. You just think it is. You're wrong.
Right.
And that's quite a shitty attitude in some ways. And that's quite interesting.
Well, but by the end of the issue, he kind of learns about it, because he is getting lapped. Like, granted, it's Solaris is there and whatnot, but this guy is a powerful figure on his own, as the son. I mean, how is he any different besides having a form of a physical son than John himself, who's powered by the sun?
Right.
It's just all this minutia thing. But no, I do get where Pete's coming from, where you have Superman and this, what he represents, and then John's kind of the next, he almost is a split between Lois and Clark there. So I like it. I like this issue a lot, more so than the first one, which was good. But I feel like this really everything hit the way I think it was supposed to.
Yeah. But I just thought that was a kind of not like a bombshell, but there was just that one line just stuck out to me so much in this book because it was just so different to what I think they would write into Clark's mouth that regardless of how you want to like take it or how you want to like break it up, I think the fact that he said it at all is noteworthy.
Yeah, and I think that's a good thing. Ultimately, because I don't want him to just sound like Clark.
Oh, no, not at all. No. It makes sense. It's almost because if you do read it as a kind of even agnostic, if not atheist, kind of read, it's kind of almost like Superman is an older character. He comes from this time where the idea of the Christian values is deeply embedded into Americana and all that. Right? And even today, even though he doesn't talk about it as much, he still kind of comes from that era, so you still kind of associate a little bit with that. Whereas the idea of having his son be a little bit further advanced and a bit more kind of not like rebellious, I don't want to quite say that far, but just the idea that there is a sort of progression there with the world in a way.
It's almost a generational thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, when you start to get into it, I mean, what do you think the American way was kind of always representing all those years? And that's why it's been so, that's what I'm looking for. Like, controversial, but not, that's the wrong word. Today. I mean, remember there was that whole story that came out a couple of years ago about what, the American way and people getting all upset about Superman. But yeah, I get where Pete's coming from.
Yeah. I don't know. It's interesting to me. So yeah, that's just a solid issue. Matt, what are you giving Superman Wonder Woman?
I'm gonna say 8.5.
Connor?
8.5.
Damn it.
I'm going a little lower. I'm going to say a straight 8. Like I say, some of the big ideas and the sun god and stuff is so just like I could have done with that being more digestible and just introduced in a. Basically, I'm saying maybe a third issue to sort of maybe not just feel that these are just taken as granted, which is sometimes where I have a problem with like super like high concept mythological stuff is just thrown at me without the nice sort of more natural lead in.
Kind of what you're saying here is you feel like John and you need the sign, you need the explanation kind of given to you in a reasonable way.
Yeah,
you can't just accept it.
I need some rules. Yeah, I need some rules here.
I mean, this is why he doesn't like magic stuff.
Yeah, pretty much. But when I do like magic stuff, it's usually because the characters are so good and compelling that it overcomes whatever else is going on. And John, to an extent, but definitely Yara kind of embody that. And the relationship here is also super interesting. So there's still a lot of good stuff going on here. There's good art to behold. But I guess what I'm just saying is that I'm just not quite as over the moon in love as perhaps you two are. But that is Superman Wonder Woman. Future State Kara Zor-El Superwoman. Margaret Bennett with Margaret Sauvage on the art. And for the second time this week, I looked at a couple of pages and said, nope, it's not happening. So
to be honest, I thought you decided that after the last issue.
Yeah, me too.
I intended on reading that. I really did. And I looked at it was just the 2-page layout where there was just tons of narration boxes in the second page. And I'm just like, you know what? I saw it because I got it and I skimmed through it after. I basically said, I don't want to read this. And I skimmed through it just to see. And I saw the last page and I'm like, whatever. I'm good.
So I'm not going to disagree with you because I came into the first issue and I wanted to be more. And then deciding what it became, it is kind of a nice story for Kara.
Oh, Mike warning.
Yeah, no, it is a very nice story for Kara, and it's not her final story, despite what the ending is, but it's part of her legacy, essentially.
The route that they chose to go to make it like this weird fairy tale it lost me again throughout. Like I knew exactly what it was this time, but still was the whole shape changers and the bloodline and this and like adding this whole different like aspect to it.
It was too much. I didn't read this issue, but I think I felt this in the first issue, is that if you're going to just do a 2-issue story, maybe don't introduce like a villain in mythology that takes so much time to and exposition to explain all of it. Like do something simpler, but have the same point of the story be there, but have the villains be a bit simpler so you don't have to waste so much time in exposition.
Super into these other characters though. Like what these villains were.
It got to a point, and the art's great too, but just like at the end, there's 3 of them, right? And then she wraps them up and takes full power. And I just got lost in the art at points, just because there's so much going on though. And like Pete said, like we joke I hate to agree with Connor, but sometimes I hate to agree with Pete. That it is too much for 2 issues. Like if anything was going to be 4 issues
in general.
Well,
used to agreeing people.
But like this would have benefited maybe another issue or 2, and you could have decompressed some of the mythology stuff because again, it almost has a dreamlike thing to it at the same time.
Yeah, it's very fairy tale.
Yeah, so I'm just like, almost so like, how Pan's Labyrinth plays out as its own fairy tale from Guillermo del Toro, but it, is 2.5 hours to do that. This definitely feels like him trying to do that in 45 minutes. And you just get way too lost.
I did not feel lost at all reading this. This was very engrossing to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it is a lot of that is the art and the way that you mentioned that double page spread at the start with a lot of narration boxes. It is a lot of narration boxes, but it's also a lot of panels that it's split over. It's over like 8 panels, the way it's cut up. So it feels like there's a pace to it where I'm reading the boxes, I'm seeing the art, and I'm moving on to the next thing. It's not over one. If all those things were over one splash, that would be very different. I would say it vastly outweighs what I'm looking at.
Yeah,
because I'm constantly going back to look at art.
Add on to the fact that I also don't like this art. Right, add on that to all these boxes, and add on the fairy tale like mythology. All of that combined means that this issue is just so not for me that I took one look at that page and went, I am not reading this. I have no interest in reading any more of this.
It's really interesting because what it comes down to is these villains are characters' aunt, I think it was.
Yeah.
Linara, is that their name? I'm kind of forgetting the names. Linari. Okay, that was pretty close. So it's their aunt. And it's like, okay, there's this family power struggle. We had last issue about there's this gem that one person on the planet gets and makes them like extra powerful compared to everyone else. And it is still down to this, this big dynastic claim. Basically, it's these ruling families warring over the title essentially, and it comes down to Linari being like, no, we need to learn to do without that and move on as a society, and kind of takes all their powers and burns through them with the gem, and destroys the gem in the process, and cleanses them all of their powers, because she borrows Superwoman's powers as they do this, as to charge himself up as well, and this idea then, okay, forcing them to be better by sending them backwards a little bit, not like technologically, but more just societally, kind of knocking them down a couple of pegs, so they have to understand what it's like to be the common people, and learn from Kara how to be better from this here. And that's kind of that's where it goes here. It's them living in this community on the moon.
Yeah, well, and I like how the spot that it ends up with, where Kara went to the moon to start fresh, and she has this colony there, and now with the help from what's her name, the girl that came to see him, that they're going after. Shit, I can't remember her name. Oh, it is Linari. Yeah, that's her. So, just I like all that and what they do for her memory. That she is. This is her. What defines her is what she does here, which is just nice, and how she's different than Superman and stuff. I just like the whole thing of why they're trying to get the gem, and that the villains hold her responsible for the brother's murder, even though they were trying to murder the brother to get the. Well, you're weaving too many nets here.
Well, this is where, like, if you look at it through the lens of dynastic power struggles, all within kind of one big extended family, really. This comes back to
right, but like
Euro history, for example, where it's all this just like really messy stuff and blaming each other for stuff, and it's like,
right,
there's a lot of stretching of the truth here.
So could you do that in 2 issues of a comic book?
I think they did do it in 2 issues of a comic book.
I'd say I didn't get that. I got so tripped up on all that. I'm like, this is their thing, is like they were gonna kill that dude anyway, so the dude killed himself to pass on the gem, so they couldn't have it, and now you're calling her a murderer, even though she had nothing to do with it.
And I think the reality is they don't believe she's a murderer.
No, but they're trying to tell Kara that. Yeah, Kara knows.
No, exactly. It's them pushing an agenda. It's propaganda essentially, by going, oh look, they're a murderer. You don't want to be defending them. When they know
but that could have been introduced in the last issue, where they go, you turn her over, she's a murderer, right? Here they throw it in.
It's relatively early in the issue though, so it doesn't feel like it's out of nowhere for me. Still, it feels like this is just what it came down to for me. But
I remember reading this one and I'm like, oh yeah, I wasn't that big on the first issue. What did I think was going to happen in this one? The art's pretty though.
I thought you liked the first issue more than this, to be honest, than what you're saying.
No, it was. I'm looking at it through the shades of reading this one now and seeing where it goes. You know what I mean? Like it was fine. I definitely like the first issue more than I like this one. I do like where it ends. A lot of the stuff in this one issue, it's a lot, and it's cool that they try to do a fairy tale story with Superwoman that kind of defines her, but it kind of misses just a little bit, and it's I guess it is space fantasy, right? Because you are dealing with fantasy tropes through alien species and whatnot. So
yeah.
But the art with the pastels, like you get towards the end of the book where the colors start popping because you start going into the future and how they rebuild the moon colony, and just there's all these flowers and all the colors start to pop, and you see Lenari as she starts to grow older, and she's that bluish silver, and she contrasts with Kara, right?
Yeah,
more
and obviously
colored.
This is going through the remainder of Kara's life, and
yeah.
What's obviously really nice here is I think this works if you want this to be Kara's definitive future. You can, because none of this stops her having other stories. This is Kara's home, basically, is the moon base, and this society, this what was a fortress of solitude isn't that anymore. It's this thriving society. This has become Kara's metropolis in a lot of ways. Yeah. But none of that stops her going off and having adventures on Earth or elsewhere in space. That in between, this is just, this is like having Clark at the Daily Planet, right? It changes nothing. It's fine. We can still have this be the rest of her life. She could die here and be buried here, and still have as many Kara books as you want in the future that go wherever you want.
But yeah. So. I'm gonna rate. I'm just gonna give this a 6.5, mostly on the strength of the art there, because it does pick up towards the end. Like all those colors pop. Like Sauvage is real. Like I don't know how they got the colors to look so watercolory digitally, but they did a good job.
Yeah, I love there's the moment where Kara kind of gives into rage and comes like floating up. The cape flowing. The skirt, and it's gorgeous, and kind of having to be talked down out of that. So I'm giving 8.5. I thought this was great.
No accounting for taste.
I'll let the audience be the judge of that one. Feel confident.
If they agree with you, it's just another case of CR21 getting out of hand and spreading amongst the people. Future State Teen Titans issue 2, Tim Sheridan writing with Rafa Sandoval on the art. The Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse and Teen Titans. Obviously Famine is Wally West because that was established in the Future State flashback.
Oh yeah, and you had to read that.
I did have to read that, yes.
Confession, I didn't read this one. After I thought the first was all right. I was probably going to check this out. And then I saw the news from the Solicits that I'm not going to be, I was like, I'm not going to be reading Teen Titans Academy anymore. And then I saw, I looked at the first couple of pages of this, and I was just like, no, I don't want to.
It wasn't that good.
No, I am more hopeful, I think, than either two of you. Right? I'm not happy that it's crossing over Suicide Squad, but that's as long as it's not more of this Four Horsemen stuff. I think I'll be okay through a little bit, because as it started, it was fine. Like a lot of the hinting of what was going on and why Dick's wearing that costume.
For the record, but I'm still going to try issue 1. Like I'm not trying.
Yeah, but like I understand the impulse of being like, I don't want to touch it at all. But at the same time, I do like that this is a different take on the Titans, and we did try the Robin Titans book for 2 issues, so I gotta at least give it that. However, I never want to hear the Four Horsemen stuff again, and like. I think I was more positive on the Shazam issue than you guys were, just by a little bit.
A little bit, maybe. Yeah.
This wiped that all out, and I don't even want to touch issue 2, just because of how this one ends. I'm just like, I'm this feels like, you know how we talk about the Gotham stuff kind of feels contained, but we like that. This feels like they've done Flash and Teen Titans and now all that, and they're contained in thing, but I don't like that. You know, like I want to.
Yeah. I was giggling. Giggling like a madman there because I was because I was about to bring up my first point. I wanted to mention it was on the first page, and it was to do with dick stroke. And then as soon as I thought that, you immediately said, "I get the impulse not to want to touch it at all." And I just,
I'm really glad you told us what you love it, because I was like, what did Matt read that I didn't? What did Matt say that I didn't pick up on?
That's funny.
It was nothing. It was just because of you.
Well, and that's you know, in the spirit of that character, that's Cybe's saying that, right? So Beast Boy.
Well, I felt attacked. Because the writer went out of their way here. Tim Sheridan went out of their way to have, you know, because Starfire calls him Deathwing, and I thought to myself, oh, that's the safe, you know, combination of names. And then Beast Boy says, "Ha, I would have gone with Dick." And then Cyborg jumps in before he can finish. Says, "Grow up, man." I'm like, how dare you? I feel attacked. I'm still calling him Dick Stroke.
I think the reality is everyone's gonna still call him Dick Stroke, and they know it.
Yes, the writers try to cock block us right now, and I'm not having it. It's Dick Stroke.
Okay.
Is that the best part of this issue then?
Pretty much is.
So Red X, right? It's meant to be Miguel, right? That's what I was getting from this.
Oh, I don't know.
From Dial H.
From Dial H,
because when Miguel comes up, well, one of the problems I have with this issue, before we even get to the specifics, is that it jumps around the timeline far too goddamn much. There's present day, before, and then now, and then like it wasn't always this clear kind of like the order of events. I thought it was just bouncing around too much. Basically, at some point in the past, the Teen Titans, the newer members, tried to use the Dial H to contact the dead members of the Teen Titans against Miguel's wishes, and then that seemed to maybe kill Miguel? Is that what happened to Matt? Is that what you got from this?
It sounds
I took it as that it did something to him, that he was no longer Miguel as we know him, as that happy-go-lucky kid you guys read in Dial H, right? And so whatever happened, it also had to deal with unleashing the Four Horsemen, and so that's why, you know, and Red X had something to do with that. And then so by the end, they find out that they have to use the H dial to summon the heroes, and you get Red X without his mask, and it's feeling like it's Miguel. You know,
maybe right. It felt like it should have made that clear, I think, but a lot of them...
I don't know if that's because the whole Red X thing, right, has to do with
I don't.
What's going to happen in Titan Academy.
I get why you're saying that, but nothing in this issue when they're teasing who Red X is, based on the conversations with Dick about the past, about how he had to go hunt down Red X and bring him in, and now he's letting Red X out because he can finally help with this. None of that to me even was hinting at Miguel. It felt like it was maybe more likely to be... I don't think it was actually Jason, but it felt like one more like Jason or something like that.
Well, that's why I feel like...
Or hell, even like Raptor feels like it might fit the bill. I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah, it's kind of a mess. And then they, you know... So they get all the dead Titans, which there's a lot. Like,
yes.
That show up.
You're not making me regret skipping this.
No, and so they end up... The Horsemen, one of them can, you know, basically jump or get a hold of the different Titans. So it's jumping from them, and they're fighting their teammates until, you know, Raven can do her magic, and, you know, she says her words, and she ends up tethering them to Shazam. And then so now Shazam is going to go and have to stand guard. And it says, for more of that, see Shazam. And it's like, no, man, this is a mess. So
yeah, I really hope this is hindered by having to tie into two other books in Future State, and it's only got 2 issues to do all this complex stuff. But so I'll try issue 1 of Teen Titans Academy, but if I don't feel a significant improvement, then I am jettisoning out of there.
To borrow a phrase from one of the other shows, podcasts I listen to, it's not good, guys. You know.
That doesn't feel like a phrase that you have to borrow from. That feels like a normal phrase.
No, but
yeah.
certain listeners will pick up on it.
What is that from? That uses it that is iconic.
It's from a political. It's from Pod Save America.
Oh, okay.
Anytime they talk about something that is clearly not good, one of the hosts go, "Yeah, not good, John." So I guess it's like a no-brainer thing, and like it's not good, and it sucks because I wanted to like this. I like the concept of the Titans running a academy for young heroes, but if it's going to be more of this tone, I don't want that.
Yeah, it's overstuffed. I don't think they have revealed who Red X is. I think Red X, the reveal of that, is going to be in Academy. Because part of me thought they were going to reveal at the end of the issue because they were teasing it so heavily, but I really don't think they did. But I mean, yeah.
Who knows?
It never even occurred to me it was Miguel. So when Matt said, they're saying it's Miguel, right? I'm like, what?
That's how I took it, because you look at some of the art with his face kind of showing, but not in... There's a lot of talk of the Dial H dial. And so I'm wondering if Red X is one of his forms, like... Because isn't there an opposite dial, too?
There is. I mean, yeah, maybe it's one of his forms. That would make some sense, because the reason why I was going to argue against it is that he's still a kid, even though it's still, like, Brat Girl and stuff like that. It's still the newer members. Why is he still a kid if he's Red X? He seems to have been an adult for a long time. Unless he's just permanently transitioned into a Dial H character.
Right.
Which
that would really undermine a lot of that book.
It would, but I mean, undermining doesn't seem to be a problem right now.
Because that was like the whole big point of the ending of that book, which fantastic book for anyone who didn't read it, was that he got caught up in the idea of being a hero full time, and had to learn to be himself. And that was a big part of the message of that.
Yeah, again, I don't think it is him, though. So I don't think it is.
No, that's
really
fair. I'm just saying, if it is, if Matt is somehow correct, although Matt has been very wrong before. Let's be honest.
Oh, I'm always wrong.
Don't get me wrong. This is not. This is an evil Superman, but it's actually just a parasite. This is not that debate.
Or the one where he thought Connor Kent was dead.
Oh, that one, yeah. That was just a straight up factually wrong.
Excuse me for looking at what Bendis was doing at the time.
So was I, which is why I knew it was wrong.
Right. So, anyway.
Oh dear. After nothing else, it was an entertaining conversation. But I mean, I know you were maybe not entertained, but I was very entertained by that conversation.
No, that's fine.
It's the most I ever enjoyed the Bendis run.
It's whatever.
Yeah, this is just kind of a mess. I mean, the first one was a little messy, even though there's things I liked about it. This one was just a mess, and I had nothing really to get from it or enjoy from it. So, what are you giving it, Matt?
This is a 5.5.
Yeah, I was leaning to like a 4. So, 4 out of 10 from me.
That is a 4 on the Matt scale, though.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's just true. So there you go. That's Future State to Ted's. So, Rorschach issue 5. Tom King writing, Jorge Fornes on the art. Isn't it nice to talk about a good book? I feel like I've just talked about some books I didn't like, so I'm happy to talk about Rorschach. Quite a bit, in fact. So, this is kind of a check-in issue, because this is the investigator going back to the governor who's running for president, Turley. And also Turley's like right-hand man, who's the one who hired him in the first place, who kind of bookends the issue because he's in the bar with him saying, hey, you're going to go meet him, tell him this, tell him that, but don't mention this. And we find out that Turley's convinced that Redford is behind this assassination attempt, and he's not hearing anything else to the contrary, even though the investigator's like, I've not found anything that even suggests that. I mean, it's not impossible, but everything's suggesting it's just that these wild cards.
It's these two.
Yeah,
it's this girl that acted alone and has tricked other guys into going along with their schemes in the past. And
there was some wonderful thematic stuff in this issue. I mean, 'cause I think inherently this one might not be as exciting as the last couple, because the last couple were so focused in like these chapters of this girl's life.
So this one is a breather issue almost, where we get character time with our investigator. Because I feel like I know him even better now, and Turley.
I was gonna say both him and Turley equally. I think Turley more than ever feels like a complete shitbag. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's a panel in this where he refers to Nixon as a good guy, and which is probably tells you all you need to know. But his entire attitude and the way he talks about things and the way he talks about people and talks about the comedian, with the fact that he's got a giant like comedian button and a painting like in a frame above his desk.
He's definitely a familiar figure. You know, if you look. But it also, to me, it goes into kind of like, right, he's talking about how Redford has destroyed the country by adding Vietnam as a state, and that's kind of what's kept Redford in the presidency. Although, is it really? Because all we've seen now is that, you know, in that city where the investigator, which I forget his name, I should know the main character's name, but I feel like it doesn't get said.
Yeah, it never gets brought up because I don't know either. I think it's just because it never gets brought up. I mean, maybe it get brought up in the first issue, but I don't think I've heard it since.
Yeah, so when he goes to that diner, right, and 2 issues ago, and they talk about, you know, are you one of the good ones or whatever? Are you good and American? And what that means. And you could see, like, there's that sentiment through the country, but it's really coming from Turley. Like, this is what he's kind of weaponizing.
I think one of the things we have to keep in mind with all this is that the only perspective we're getting for Redford and Redford's presidency and what the country is like under Redford is only coming from this extreme right-wing point of view. We never hear it from anyone else. I mean, our main character, Investigator, feels quite neutral, and he almost feels like he's silently judging when he hears certain things, or he's not as quick to jump to certain things. But, you know, Turley, his right-hand man, even the waitress in the diner from a couple issues ago, we keep hearing these very extreme views talking about Redford and what he's done to the country. We've never actually seen anyone else on Redford's side trying to justify or explain their point of view.
No, it's very much one-pointed, but through that and through him being neutral, you're getting revealed of kind of the temperature of things. And even just like Turley kind of represents this almost like descendant of the comedian, right? Where the comedian kind of represents this toxic like view of almost like, I don't want to say imperialism or colonialism, but like he represents the United States in Vietnam, right? And he's just killing fools. The way that Turley talks about his one time he met him, you know, he took out an entire beach of people and, you know, Turley got him out of there, and he's just so revered. And you see the investigator just kind of listening, being like, is this the same comedian that we're familiar with? You know, so like the public or even the investigator has a different view of the comedian than what Turley does. And it's almost how like the right wing kind of looks at strongman figures, and they're the only ones that are right.
And just on that point, like this flashback where we see Turley as a younger guy in Vietnam, because they mentioned early on that he's a vet, and this is where he's a vet from. And he, you know, we see this scene of him like just mowing down people on a beach, trying to like cover fire for the comedian as he's trying to save this POW or whatever she is. Yeah.
Right.
There's a scene earlier on in the issue when the investigator comes to see Turley. There's a guard outside who insists on patting him down, and he's like really stern. He's like, "I'm going to pat you down," blah blah blah. And the investigator's like, "Hey, I've been trying to contact you because you were there. You were part of the Secret Service that took down the 2 culprits on the night." And we get like a sort of flashback to the moment. And we've seen this moment before, just from a different perspective. But we get just the panels focusing on this investigator where he very coldly just ejects his magazine and reloads his gun and then like empties his
fires
clip.
Away.
Yeah, like he's already shot at least one of them, and he empties his clip and very calmly. And I thought there was a parallel between this and the way he's just making sure he mows down whatever he can. There's no thought process. There's no yelling to stop.
It's
just
pointed.
Yeah, it's just point and shoot as quickly as possible.
Well, and there's intent there, right? It's not to stop the people that shot at Turley. It's to absolutely murder that person. Yeah. Right? Just like with Turley, it wasn't the point of saving the comedian, right? We know the comedian can handle himself, but it was the fact that he was almost killing people just to do it, you know? And that's the type of person, of course, that would look up to the comedian.
Yeah,
and that's the type of person that's going to rise up against Redford.
The comedian even says, I know how many you killed, not enough.
Yeah.
Like, they laugh it off. They both think that's really funny. It's they're peas in a pod.
Right. And it's this toxic machismo that pervades the right wing, you know.
Turley's literally having a shit when the investigator comes in.
When he shows up and he's just telling him to like deal with it, and like there's this like bravado there. You're like, dude, you're just gross. What are you doing? You know, like, but and just also that he says that he went through six metal detectors, and they still intent on checking him. So like, just how paranoid is this always how paranoid Turley is? Or is
and they pat him down when he leaves as well because he might have taken something.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, and so it shows just how deep that they'll like. This one guy wants to believe like, oh yeah, Redford's having me killed, because they even asked the investigator as he leaves, did he bring him up? You know, and no matter what, that's going to be the line going forward.
Yeah, it's that
Redford tried to have him killed, and there's zero evidence for that.
Yeah. The aide who sees him in the bar again at the end of the issue, and that's when he asks, like, you know, did he bring up Redford? And of course he did, but the investigator lies and says no. Right. Just to go back to the flashback, like another thing is like when a comedian's saying, "Hey, like, do you want to know exactly how many you killed?"
Right.
He's like, "Yeah, sure." It's like, "You sure you want to know? You want to know like how many bodies are in?" We get really dark panels of like children like dragging in the dead bodies of all these people that were killed by Turley. He's like, "Hell yeah, I want to know." I do want to know.
Well, it's almost like, well, who's worse, right? We know the comedian, this weighs on his shoulders, right? Because of what we've read in Watchmen and other things. But he had to learn to accept that. And with this guy, he doesn't seem to care. He doesn't carry that burden. So it's almost like the generation that gave birth to him, they're even worse now.
Yeah, no, I mean, when we go to him, like after the comedian says not enough, we cut to him sitting in his fancy chair in his expensive suit, just laughing his ass off. Yeah. He comes across as truly disgusting, honestly, in this issue.
Again, without going into strict details, it reminded me of a certain politician, you know, like just his whole vibe of it. Although this guy is actually a vet and actually did things, and you know, unlike other ones. But you know, there's a certain type of politician that wants to weaponize like might is right, even though they have little to no backing of it themselves. You know, they don't know what it's actually like. Whereas Turley, I feel, does know, and that almost makes him worse, because he knows what that weight is of war, and he doesn't seem to care. You know, because I have the feeling too that you get to the end, they talk about like Man and Superman, and it was Manhattan and Comedian. Like before he left, he saw them, you know, on the streets of Vietnam and whatnot. But the way that he talks about it, it almost is like he's more glorifying the Comedian as the Superman, almost as if he's
because he even jokes and says, you know, don't ask which one's which.
Right. That because he is like the personification of war, right? Versus Manhattan, I think the personification of.
I think part of it, and in the same way that like the Watchmen TV show took the idea that people inspired by Rorschach's journal were this extremist group who were essentially terrorists. The idea that, same here with Comedian, is that when you have characters who have a bit more nuance, and you have these people with more nuance, when they sort of symbolize themselves in a certain way, kind of like you were saying earlier on, is that the next generation who's inspired by them almost just takes the caricature of it and doesn't read into the nuance of it, and just takes the cold, hard side of it, and it almost becomes like almost just even purer to what the core thing was, which in this case is, you know, Comedian was a bastard, but he had some awareness that he was a bastard to a certain point.
He knew what the price of that was, right? Because when we see his final moments, he's all alone, right? And he's past his prime and whatnot. He knew what that sowed. But it's almost like this new generation's like, yeah, but that won't be me. And, you know, there's a different edge to it, you know? And that's when he's sitting there, that's the last thing he sees is the Man and the Superman. And then he comes back and that dude goes from a vet and whatever his thing is, or he ends up becoming a governor, right? And it's just like, that's kind of dangerous. Someone with that mentality giving levers of power. And so you look at the investigator with now, when he leaves, the final page is he's almost walking in step with the memory of what's her name? I forget what they call the kid.
But before we get there, we have to. There's a speech we have to talk about before, because that last page is important, but it's important because of the setup.
Okay, go ahead.
Because notably, so he's still talking to Turley, and Turley's talking about people who put on masks, and he talks about how the two people who tried to kill him, no one was going to see them do it. They were up in the rafters, but they still put on the mask. So the masks weren't about hiding their identity. It was about doing it wearing the mask. It was about being those personas. And we know that she maybe convinced the old guy that he was Rorschach. He was, Rorschach's spirit was in him, and blah blah blah. Because we've seen her do that to someone else before, and that's the assumption, at least for now. And it's it talks about thinking that, and as he's saying this, we see them sort of standing out in the rain, which is relevant for the final page because that's where we ultimately see them at the end.
Right.
Not they're not really there. It's more of a metaphorical thing. But he talks about the investigator and how he has this look on his face. Now you don't have a mask on you, but the way you kind of the way you said you didn't see any evidence for Redford's involvement and you're looking into it, he sort of says that you have this kind of desire to find the truth. It kind of reminds him of people who put on masks. This idea of like no matter what, getting to the bottom of it, and that some people don't need masks, and he's looking at the investigator and saying you're one of these people who don't need masks, and I mean, just to read some of this dialogue here at the bottom of this page, because again, it kind of focuses on the kid, right, the girl, and it says, "You'll find the truth. I've got confidence that I do. I think you have great potential. I'm good at seeing potential. I can look at a man and see what a lot of people don't. A lot of people see the same thing, but what I see in you, no one sees it but me." And I think the idea that he thinks he's comparing him to the comedian in this moment, that he's sort of recognizing that special thing in him that he saw in the comedian back in Vietnam. And I think the ending, so he leaves, he meets Alan the aide, and one of the other things as well before he goes is that he starts smoking, and he says to the investigator, "Don't say this to anyone, because if anyone knows, I'll have to answer questions about this bad habit. But you have to hide some things when you're trying to show yourself as a better version of yourself. You're trying to be the best version of yourself. You have to hide some things about you." And it got me thinking about the main character. It got me thinking about the investigator. And there's a moment where the guy pats him down again on the way out, and he's like, "Hey, you've got an attitude. You're hiding it quite well. You're good at keeping calm, but I can kind of tell that you've got an attitude, and an attitude's not a good thing to have." And he's like, "Do you want to hit me?" And the investigator turns around and says, "No, but if you want me to hit you, I'll see what I can do." And I think it's kind of seeding this idea that this investigator, and I don't know if it's going to go full out and say that he becomes a new Rorschach by the end, but
he has more in common with the idea of Rorschach from here, right? Of the kid who is kind of weaponizing that whole squid thing and preying on susceptible people, right? Whereas this guy sees things in shades of gray. It's not that black and white again, which has been a theme in so far every issue.
Oh, hon, who thinks what? I'm confused.
So the investigator, right?
Yes.
He has more in common with Rorschach than he does and the kid, right? And her whole thing, right, where she's weaponized the idea that the squids are taking over, right, from her dad.
The investigator has stuff in common with her?
Right. Is that there's more in common there because there's shades of gray. She understood those shades of gray, but she's weaponized them, right?
Okay.
And that's where he is. It's not just the straight black and white that Rorschach normally does. Because that's where Walter Kovacs was in his life. We've been over this in the other issues.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm not so sure I get that point, but just the final page here is when he leaves the bar, and the Alan leaves first, there's a great sort of thing. There's a 9-panel grid here where the shot glass on the investigator's side is still sitting there, and the guy's trying to say, "Hey, you've got access to all the funds to hunt down whoever's behind this." Like, he's determined to find them. So did he bring up Redford? It's when he asks about Redford that he finally picks up the glass and says no. He takes a drink. And the last page of the book is he walks out in the street and it's pouring a rain. Just like earlier on, we saw a couple of panels of the kid and this new old man Rorschach. They were standing in the rain, and he walks out in the street and it's pouring a rain just like that. And as he walks down the street, Rorschach and the kid are walking behind him, just sort of side by side, almost laughing as he walks down the street. And the idea that they're kind of walking with them, and I don't know if this is necessarily suggesting that he's starting to kind of see why they did what they did, and he's starting to sort of see the evil that this man is, and that something needs to be done about it, and he's starting to understand, and that's why they're effectively, if you take this as their spirits internally laughing at him, that he's finally starting to catch on to kind of like that's like almost if you believe metaphorically that Rorschach's spirit did pass on to someone else, that in some way, and it's not that literally his spirit is passed on into the investigator, but it's more that the idea of that this man is a problem and needs to be taken care of has almost started to seed its way into him, because he's met the man, he's heard how he talks, what his views are on things, and this visual at the end of the spirits, if you will, again, of the kid and Rorschach laughing as he's learning who he's working for, and I don't think I think he's getting to the point where he's really starting to not feel comfortable about who he's working for, and that's when I go back to the Turley comparing them to people with masks. I think Turley's recognizing him and looking at him and saying, "Oh, this guy, he could be like a new comedian. He's gonna be a problem, right?" Yeah. Well, no. I don't think it could be a problem. In the moment, I don't think that's what he's saying. He's saying he could be the new comedian. He's saying he's recognizing in him what he thinks he saw in the comedian a long time ago, but in actual fact, he's becoming more like the opposite. He's becoming kind of more on the Rorschach side, where he's recognizing in you that you're the problem, Turley, and that ultimately he's going to be the mask that leads to his downfall, whether or not he ever actually literally puts on a mask or not.
Right. Well, and then so also while working this out, it also goes in what we were talking about of that generation begetting a different generation, right? Whereas now through this investigation, it's almost like whether he wants to or not, the investigator's kind of becoming a Rorschach-like character, right? Like you just said, but it also fits in with that whole, where you talk about the nuance and whatnot. It plays it with that, but on this side, of it. And that's why at the end, they're kind of he's kind of walking in step, because he understands what they were, maybe not the full story, but he understands their side. And I don't know if I want to say he's outright becoming a Rorschach per se. I want to walk that back a little bit, because I do think he's not as, but just the idea that he's starting to maybe believe in what they were doing, or at least why they were doing it, and what the problem with Turley is that needs to be dealt with. And that's not to say that he's going to try and assassinate him. Maybe that's where the book's going to go eventually. He'll eventually be convinced enough to do that, but certainly I think the idea of the seed of doubt and the seed of that there's something wrong with Turley is kind of what's really planted here for him. Definitely.
And it was kind of there in the first issue. When he was given the job, he did kind of feel like he wasn't a devout believer and supporter of Turley. He was just taking a job. This was just.
But he believed again, and this also goes down to the truth, right?
Yeah.
And that he believes in the truth, and the truth is black or white. But when you're sifting through it, you do have to go through the gray. And again, that's why I think Rorschach's such a great character for that, because that's who he was. It's that polar opposite. It's good or evil, right? But life doesn't always work out that way, right? To a fault. Yeah. And his job as an investigator, he has to figure that out. Of that there's more complexity going on here. It's like, again, I'm still getting caught up on the kid character and the whole squid thing. Like, does she actually still believe that? Is she just using that to? What's her vibe? You know what I mean? Like, how did she talk to this old man into going just as Rorschach, So...
And you could also just read the ending of he's been pulled between the two viewpoints now to the point where it's not so much that he's becoming more on their side, it's more that he's seen enough from Turley now to not really... It's not black and white anymore. So if you take the idea that... I mean, whatever side's which colour, but Turley's the white side, and then the idea of the villains trying to assassinate with the black side... now he's in this middle place where he's actually not sure which one is the right side to be on. Like, it's not that obvious anymore.
Well, there's that saying that there's three sides to every story: your side, their side, and the truth, right? Because you paint through your bias and whatnot. So who knows? It's King doing like this. Like you said, this issue's not as exciting, and it's more of a character piece on Turley and even the investigator as we start to peel that. But it's still so layered with different things.
I mean, I'm just another thought in this ending. Could it be that he's more like the Night Owl of this, and the idea that because Night Owl always kind of worked with Rorschach, right? That was kind of a thing in the Watchmen. Partners. And I do wonder if this idea that he's more like Night Owl was the more sensible one, the more balanced one. Well,
and again, he's just taking this job, and he's supposed to be impartial, right? As an investigator, you're not supposed to go in with a bias. You're supposed to go in hypothetically of, this is what the evidence is, and this is what we have to build around. And he tries to give that to Turley and be like, look, all the evidence just says these are just two lone wolves that don't like you, has nothing to do with Redford. But Turley can't accept that because in his own mind, no, Redford's trying to take me out because I'm too dangerous. And so yeah, maybe you're onto something, because he kind of does remind me of Night Owl in that way of, he is like, love him or hate him, Rorschach has charisma, right? There's something that draws people to him as a character. That's why he's kind of a standout in Watchmen as a series and what they did with him on the TV show. And you kind of sometimes forget Night Owl even was there, but he's almost the main character of that book, if I remember right. Like you follow him and Laurie throughout as they're, and isn't he the one that pieces everything together?
It's kind of an even split, to be honest. I mean, Night Owl and Laurie is equal to Rorschach, which is equal to,
Yeah, but now that you mentioned that, I can see the Night Owl comparison a lot better. Like he is he's kind of stuck in between. So, but yeah, it's good. Fornes' art too. Like for a lot of this, like the action is there, but in a subtle way. Like you never actually see, like you see comedian running, but you don't see anybody actually gunned down. You see the aftermath. And that's a little bit even more haunting. Those pages definitely stuck with me. And then just Turley sitting there and looking menacing. Like it's
the giant button in the frame. I mean, even the fact that what kind of like makes him leave, and the question, did he mention Redford? The idea of trying to turn it into this political two-sided thing. Right. He just lies and leaves, and he's walking in the rain. Like the idea that this world has been caught up, he's just trying to solve an attempted murder. And it's becoming this political fight between two sides that he has no interest in necessarily. Or if he does, he's keeping it very close to the chest as to... But, I mean, certainly his reaction to the waitress a couple issues ago, and then kind of his, like, reactions in this episode, his stoic, and then even the implication of the attitude that the guard says about him, does kind of imply that he, at least in some level, disagrees with Turley's views. Right. And we're so disgusted by in this issue that it makes sense that he, in some level, is too. So I wonder, this is the sort of moment at the ending of this issue. I wonder, like, after a few more issues, or even after the whole thing, like coming back and reading that again and reading this issue, I wonder if this ending takes on a new meaning or it becomes clearer based on where it goes throughout. But certainly a lot of juicy stuff to think about on its own right now. So. Yeah, and I think I put out like 5 different ideas in the space of like a minute there as I was talking about that last page.
It is one of those books that I was trying to piece together, and there's just so much at play here. Like it is very it's no wonder that King was a CIA agent and was able to juggle so many threads, right? Because you see all the stuff here, and
I think notably it doesn't feel it does feel like there's a plan behind it all. It does feel like he knows what he's doing. Even though there's so much at play and there's so much going on, it never feels like
it's not messy. Like I'm never like, okay, having a hard time. I have a hard time not explaining it, but processing it sometimes. But if you guys go back, I've always had a hard time processing King stuff on here. Like go back to watch the Mr. Miracle review from way back. Like that's just Tom King, I think. Although this one's a little bit more straightforward, I would say. There's a web almost. This book makes me the Charlie Day meme of all the webs and stuff.
So. The themes are so rich. There's a lot of layers at play. And the fact that we're now sort of tying in like what our main character is feeling about all these things and what he's taking from it, without it actually just spelling it out completely clearly, adds a whole other bit of context to it. So I assume we're back to the investigation next issue and wherever he's going next to like find out, because he still mentions he has no idea why the old man's fingerprints match Kovacs.
Right.
You know, he doesn't know how she convinced them necessarily yet. So
the one thing that got me is like, what if she's right and Kovacs' spirit does jump into these people? Like, what if that's the twist at the end and we're like, holy crap, like, you know, like I'm not necessarily betting on that's going to happen, but like it definitely entered my mind when we got to that, like the fingerprints matching, and again, why him? And he was an artist, right? He did the Pontius Pirate book and stuff. So like it's just there's so much at play here now. But I really enjoyed this book.
Yeah. So again, the lesson I learned from this issue is that the comedian was a horrible influence on another generation of people. This is the main thing I took from it. So yeah, what are you giving Rorschach issue 5?
I'm gonna give this an 8.5.
I'll give it 8.5. It's really maybe one that I think of fondly when the whole thing's done, and if I read it again, maybe I'll even be more positive on it. But I don't love it as much as the last, like say, 2 issues that were just, even the last 3 issues even.
Yeah. But yeah, we're bound to have like a catch your breath kind of deal where you have to reset some things.
In a way, it may be my least favorite issue so far, but that feels even like a really
bad.
Yeah, it feels like a really mean thing to say though, because I also think it's very rich in what it adds to the overall story. So it feels like a needlessly mean thing to say when it doesn't really apply. Anyway, 8.5 for me as well. So that's Rorschach. Well, that'll take us on to the Patreon book. Everyone to patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. Patrons at the higher tiers can make myself or Connor read a book. Connor's going to talk about Undiscovered Country, issue 12.
Yes, and I'm going to keep it mercifully short for Matt because the hockey's on. I don't know if he's watching it or not.
No, I am.
Yeah, I am.
Nice just scored on a power play. It's shocking.
It's very rare, isn't it? But I can actually keep it mercifully short because it's a pretty straightforward issue, actually. This is the end of the arc, and it's, you know, there's not a whole lot of like weird exposition reveals, you know, talking about America that the last couple of issues have been. Not that they were bad, they were good for what they were doing, but this is a lot more to the point. And it basically opens with the Unity woman, whose name I have completely forgotten, the one in charge of it all, has created like copies of the whole group. And as we learned last issue, they can either walk through the whole spiral, and then when they get to the end, they have to make a decision as to which zone is best for the outside world, which one will contribute the most to global society, and that's the one they'll go with. And her plan is basically just, right, keep them all captive, make the copies, and get the copies just to choose Unity. And there you go, job's a good one. So, of course, you know, they're fighting back. They hook up, because they're hooked into it all now as well. They access the brains of all the kids that they're using to harvest to power this. And they kind of enter this reality that the child brains have either created for themselves or have been created for them. But it is this, like, you know, it's just this little playground area. And the kids are really creepy because they're just outlines. Like, you know, they don't have features. They're like just sketch drawings. They have eyes, but they have no other facial features. It's very creepy. And basically, Charlotte, you know, talks like, you know, America, you know, I have a name. You all have names. You have lives that you should be able to live, and it's up to you to kind of choose that for yourself. There's a really terrifying moment in the art actually where all these kids, that, you know, after she's made this speech to them, they're looking around to each other, and then you can see the confusion, which is incredible art in the body language of these kids, which are just outlines. You know, they literally just have eyes and nothing else at this point, and you can see the confusion on their faces. And then mouths start forming, you know, just slowly. And then you have this kind of where they've all had this like a black kind of outline, maybe a bit grey. I think they were grey before. and they start to solidify here, and they turn red, and they get more defined features, and they get these mouths, and they just open in like a horror, and it's legitimately creepy as shit. It's a great panel, and it's basically the kids, which is all these brains that are powering this. It's them rebelling and freeing themselves and shutting down the system, which in turn frees our characters. And this breaks everything. The illusion, the copies that were created, which are talking to the Destiny Man, and they're in the process of saying, "We choose, Unity." And Destiny Man like, "Yeah, you sure don't want to go through the spiral? See the rest." No, we're gonna go with this. But then this is as everything shuts down and they fade away. And so, okay, I see what's happened here. And alongside all of this, you have the Destiny Man fighting the Unity in their space, because he's been infecting it, and he's got such an imposing look right now. He's got this kind of terrifying helmet with like these spikes on, but they're asymmetrical. He's got a giant like Colt 45. And that's part of his speech, going, technology's always been the forefront of America. You were right about that, but you were wrong about the aspects of technology. What it is it's been the weapons, the things that we could use that made us feared and obeyed. That's been made this country what it was. And his bullets are ICBMs, which are, so he just has like a belt of them, and he pulls off a couple, and he does fire them, and it actually shoots like a nuke when it goes off, and it's incredible. But the Unity Woman, as she's realized she's lost, after in the digital space, Destiny Man chopped off her head with his lobster claw hand, which is a hell of a thing. Great visual.
I'm only half listening, and I heard cut off her head with his lobster claw head, and I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah. The whole thing.
Yeah, okay.
Design of the Destiny Man. I cannot overstate that enough. But after she's lost, she's like, well, you might as well go through the rest of the spiral, and I've got to have faith that by the time you get to the end, you'll agree that Unity was the best option, and we can move forward from that anyway. And so she sends them off with the original iPod, which is the key, and they're driving towards the door, and there's the blast of the nuke chasing them, and they're trying to outrun it basically, and they're like, right, okay, well, what song do we play? What's going to be the key to open it? And they're like, oh, we don't know. And they're like, oh, there's a song, oh, she blinded me with science. And they're like, that makes sense for Unity. And they're like, no, singer's British, that won't be work. That won't be it. And then they get to it, and oh yeah, there we go. Danny Elfman, born in LA, that'll be it. And it's his weird science from his Oingo Boingo days.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, yep, that'll be it. And hits play, and the door opens. Through they go, and we have just a little snippet of Destiny Man here at the end. Kind of, Uncle Sam being like, congratulations, you kind of, you won in Unity, I guess. Aurora's obviously not happy about it, but here you are. So you can stay here. Congratulations, this land is your land. And he leaves Destiny Man just staring out over this desolate landscape that he's literally just new. Unity, which was this shining utopia, is gone. It's just this crumbling desert now, essentially. And then the final bit that we get is just the main group learning what their next episode is. And they're in the Ford Theater. They're like, wait, are we going to get shot? And then the curtain opens, and they're on a pirate ship. Or, I say pirate ship. That type of galley. And, have...
Maybe make a tap, will you? It wasn't just
I'm
me.
glad you said something.
He was kind of dropping out there, right?
I thought my headphones were doing it, so I was just like, oh, I need new headphones. Always.
It was
I'm
like
not
you were
gonna say
getting
anything.
Quieter, more muffled, and then words just started dropping out.
That was just like a gradual thing over this thing?
Yeah. It sounds fine now.
How strange. I'm not sure what caused that. But anyway, they're on this, galleon, and
it sounds so much better.
I literally didn't change a thing there for the record. All I did is, no idea. But you have Uncle Sam being here, and he's in like a big, big red trench coat, big British Empire style. So yep, the only thing we're going to be thinking about now is adventure, and the way adventure is bolded makes me assume that adventure is what this zone is. With the caveat that it says, the ending little box is, Unity No More next possibility. So maybe possibility is the zone versus adventure. I could see them going either way. Really looking forward to the next arc, though. I think the second arc really opened up what this book is, kind of what it's the mission statement of the story that it's telling. That's pretty exciting going forward. Art's great throughout again. I'm really into it. This is a solid. It's an 8.5 this issue. As I said, a lot more straightforward than the last couple. A lot less heavy exposition on the nature of America, and we'll just let's hit the conclusion to this arc strong, and it does.
Yeah, I'm starting to think Skip is like when Cora's talking for extreme amounts of time on his own.
It could legitimately be that it's starting to think that it was background noise, because it's like, okay, it's filtering, going, okay, that's consistent noise.
I love the fact that his mic just is like, no, stop talking.
No, it could be Skype thinking that it's okay, this is going on, so it must be part of the background noise that is waiting for me to talk above it.
That tells you something about how dull your voice is. Don't do that with Matt.
Well,
no, mine just freaks out and goes Brainiac mode.
Well, it does. Okay, so. It does that every hour or so, but it doesn't start to think that you're just so dull that this isn't real speaking. It starts zoning out.
I don't think Skype has the capability to judge dullness. I think it just judges the amount of noise.
It's dullness. Skype knows you're dull. So essentially, this is QR21. I gotta recalibrate.
CR.
CR. Whatever.
It's mutated.
He's lost what it was by the end of the episode.
Okay.
It wasn't talking for that long. Bloody hell.
Yeah. Well, it felt like an eternity. Did you read it?
Well, yeah, I did.
Okay. Right, good to know. Well, that'll take us out of the part of the show where we pick our favorites of the week, favorite panel/moment, favorite cover, favorite art, and top 5 books. So we'll get straight into it then. Matt, what was your panel/moment?
Usually it's something from Rorschach, but this one was more of an understated. So I think I'm gonna go with Justice League, the shot of them around the table at the end. I really like that panel a lot.
Car?
I'm gonna go with something that was just an easily pleasing art moment this week. Sometimes you choose it for the context. Sometimes, like now, it's just because it was cool as shit. And I'm going from Justice League, but from the Justice League Dark Story. Zatanna riding the Ragman Dragon. I mean, it was a great moment to turn the page onto.
I wasn't paying attention when you were talking about that, so this is news to me. Ragman Dragon.
Well, yeah. you can see this panel when I post it on Twitter sometime in the week when I remember, and definitely not right before next week's show.
I don't know, you picked something from a Ram V book last time. He's going to think you're stalking him if you keep tagging him.
Oh shit, I did, yeah.
I probably I'm going with Rorschach, I imagine, for this. I'm tempted to just go with the ending because it just led to so much conversation that, hard. That said, though, the full page reveal of the comedian painting, the button painting above the desk. Because we're talking, when I say big painting, I do mean big. We're talking like a really high ceiling and then this big square painting that's going all the way up to it. But I'll go with the ending. Alright, cover of the week. I'll jump in first for this one. We'll go back round the way. It's basically between, I think both Dark Detective covers are really good. One's Behermo cover, the variant. But the main one's the Dan Mora one, which is really, really pretty. I do love the main Rorschach cover though, which is just, it's almost like the classic kind of Apocalypse Now, the sun in Vietnam, except there's a giant Manhattan silhouette walking past the sun.
Yeah, that one's pretty cool.
It's really simple and effective. I think I'm going to go with the Dark Detective cover as my pick, but those were the 3 that I was debating. What about you, Connor?
I think you've picked out a lot of good covers there. Sometimes I'll not really agree with some covers, but I think they were all good choices. I think the ones I want to highlight on top of those are the Superwoman variant. That's really nice. And then both of the Superman Wonder Woman covers. You got a Lee Weeks one and a Dodson's cover for the main and variant respectively. I'm gonna go with the main cover, the Lee Weeks. I think that's really nice. But I mean, a lot of good covers this week all around, to be honest.
Yeah. Matt?
And I'm going to be a self-parody and have to go with the Dotsons, Superman, Wonder Woman.
I'll be honest, part of me left that just because I was like, Matt's probably going to pick that.
Yeah, I mean, that's also Yara. I gotta take Yara where I can get her. So.
All right. Best art of the week, Connor?
I'm going to go with the Superwoman. I think that's really nice.
Oh.
Screw you.
That's a bad
Got no
taste.
taste.
A bad taste in my mouth. What are my choices here? Mora on Dark Detective.
Yeah.
But it's Rorschach. It's Jorge Fornes.
I could have predicted that.
It's fantastic. I hate to pick Rorschach for everything this week, but the art is phenomenal, and it's my
Fornes is
favorite
a damn fine artist. I will not say a bad word about him.
Yeah, Matt.
Yeah, it's Fornes, but I also wanted to highlight the Justice League team, both books or both stories. I like the art; it's real good. And then, of course, Superwoman. Art's really pretty. It's probably the best thing I liked about the book. But yeah, it's Rorschach.
Connor.
I started this.
Did you? Okay.
Yeah, I did Superwoman.
Well, no,
you were like, that,
that's right. You're right. You're right. I mean, you make things you're dull. I think you're forgettable. This is the.
I'm gonna.
I've heard the song before.
I'm gonna choose to think you thought that book was forgettable, and that's all it was.
All right, top 5 books of the week then, Matt. You can take it away.
All right, so number 1's going to be Rorschach. 2 is going to be Justice League. 3, Superman, Wonder Woman. 4 is Dark Detective, and 5, Superwoman. I meant Wonder Woman. Dark Detective is 4, and Superwoman is 5.
Connor?
Superman, Wonder Woman for 1, and then Superwoman. 2, Justice League, and then I guess Dark Detective comes in 4th.
Yeah, really a weird week for me because I would put Rorschach number 1, and then I'll go Dark Detective at number 2, then Justice League. Oh, no. Yeah, then Justice League, then Superman, Wonder Woman, and then I guess Teen Titans. What's left? I think so. Yeah. Yeah, so I had a really weird weekend. There was a couple of things I really liked, and then there was a couple of things I really didn't like, and then there was a couple of things that I just took one look at and went, "How do I read this?" So
there's quite a big drop between your top couple and then the next ones.
So, a bit of an odd week, but hey. So there you go. That's our picks of the week. I will tell you what's coming next week from DC Comics. We have a Batman Catwoman issue 3. We got Future State, the next Batman, which this is the last week of Future State as a regular week. Obviously, there's a couple of actually, no, it's not what I'm talking about. The second last week.
The week after that.
Yeah, it's the week after that's the last week.
I literally just checked the date. I was like, what the hell?
For some reason, I thought it was week 3 this week. I don't know why, but anyway.
I think what happened is you saw 4 for next Batman. That's finishing. That must be the end.
Yeah. Anyway, Batman Catwoman issue 3, Future State Next Batman issue 4, Future State Nightwing issue 2, Future State Immortal Wonder Woman issue 2, Future State Superman Worlds of War issue 2, Future State Catwoman issue 2, Future State Shazam issue 2, Truth and Justice issue 1, and then if it really tickles your fancy, Scooby-Doo, Where Are You 108. So that's what's coming next week.
I just realized there is the possibility now that I could pick a Ramsey moment for panel of the week for 3 weeks in a row.
Well, yeah, Catwoman.
You better do it.
Yeah, Catwoman was very good last month, so I'm expecting good things from this Catwoman book.
Yeah, me too. But then Superman Worlds of War, that main story. I mean, that might pinch it.
Yeah, very well, mate. So that is what's coming next week. I will take this time to thank our Patreon producers for the month. So thank you very much to Tyler Hess, Cindy Palacios, David Sharp, Board Now, Al Treisman, Christopher Moy, Brett Williams, and David Brown. They are Patreon producers, meaning they are $20 or more at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV, where you can support us for as little as $1 per month and get some bonuses for your trouble. At the $5 tier, you get a day early access to the podcast. You also get a month early access to Previously in the Multiverse, which has returned. It's not the episodes haven't been public yet, but the first couple back are up for patrons. So you can check those out at the $5 tier. But they'll be coming in March, I assume. Yes. as everyone's camera goes out.
Skype just had a moment, apparently.
So, yeah, so you know how Connor's mic thinks he's dull?
Uh-huh.
My camera decided y'all seen enough of me.
Yeah, Skype was just like, this has gone on long enough. Just end this now.
Yes. Well, right at the end. I'm literally plugging things. So there's that. Just keep in mind, as we approach 250, we are going to do a top 50 DC characters vote that you all can take part in. The voting for that will take place during March, so maybe start thinking about it if you want to. Otherwise, you can catch us on Twitter at DC Comics Podcast. Get updates there. You can ask us questions or ask us for updates or whatever. And usually, if there is anything to inform you about, we do put stuff out there. Like, for example, if for some reason the show's going to be delayed this week or something, it'll be on the Twitter. So go and follow us on there. Otherwise, I think that's pretty much it. That's the episode. That's episode 240. So we're getting up there in the numbers. And hopefully you've been enjoying Future State. Although I think we're all a little bit ready to get back to regular in-continuity books.
There's some good books that we're all enjoying, but I'm missing ongoing series.
Yes, I mean, and plus March starts the Taylor run on Nightwing, which is like
exciting.
I mean, it's almost weird how I've kind of forgotten about it when it really is kind of the most exciting thing in a while.
I think the thing is, there's so much starting. Like, there's so much changing that March in general and onwards over the next few months, there's new books every month for March, April, and May, that it just feels exciting.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, so there you go. That's what's coming up. That's episode 240 of the Comics from the Multiverse, the DC Comics podcast. Thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep reading DC Comics. And remember to never get lost in the Speed Force.
And only you can prevent CR21.